Absolutely. Never. Say it again, y'all.
We are the two Mikes, and of course one of the massive stories which will reverberate no doubt for many days and weeks to come was the publication of the Chilcot report, finally produced many years after it was meant to have been produced, 10 million or so pounds later. Lots and lots of expectations of what was going to be said this morning. We've got much coverage of it on the papers, on the front pages. Blair's private war, Blair's vow to Bush 8 months before the Iraq war, legal case far from satisfactory, and the family's calling for the ex-Prime Minister to be prosecuted. The Daily Mail goes further, saying that Tony Blair is a monster of delusion. For 2 hours, Blair dissembled and denied in the face of Chilcot's devastating verdict. Then, with sickening egomania, he declared, "I can't say sorry for Iraq. I would do it again." Let's talk to our friend John Le Batillier over in the United States of America to get the view from his side of the pond. John, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you two guys. This is a extremely important report over here, too. Now, it's not getting as much attention yet, but it will get some. It has been reported in the print press, not as much on TV. But this war that Bush and Blair cooked up, and the way, remember that line about fixing the intelligence? And then over here, the term that was used was that Cheney went over and cherry-picked the intelligence that justified an invasion and ignored the evidence that was contrary to that. The result of this was thousands of American soldiers dead, and hundreds, I believe, of British soldiers dead.
Well, this is the interesting thing, John, isn't it?
100,000 Iraqis dead. You know?
Well, this is the interesting thing to me, John, because many more American soldiers died than British soldiers died. I mean, the families here have been very vociferous about wanting, Blair prosecuted. There's lots of, what I regard as rather stupid allegations being made that he's some kind of war criminal, and so is Bush, and that they should somehow be prosecuted in The Hague, in the War Crimes Tribunals and all of that. But I mean, I'm assuming that in the United States, the sort of appetite for doing anything like this again is the same as it is here. They don't want to.
Or you mean about doing another war in the Middle East?
Another war, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think there's no appetite for it. And ironically, now you have Trump versus Hillary. Trump was always against the war. And in the primaries, you remember at one of the debates, he went after George W. Bush with Jeb Bush standing right there, saying that I was always against it and it was a huge mistake. Hillary voted for the war. It's cost her a lot in the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And by the way, it doesn't come up enough. When she voted for it, this is called the Authorization for the Use of Force in Iraq. This is in the October 2002, and right before our congressional midterm elections. And the Bush administration had a file of intelligence available for members of Congress to read before they voted. And of course, it was to justify the war. And she never read it.
Right.
And voted with Bush. She voted yes to go in.
Yeah.
And admitted years later, I never read the file, which, by the way, to me is a disqualifier to be president.
Well,
you're going to send men and women into battle without reading the intelligence that justifies that?
Exactly.
Crazy.
Exactly. John, I was very suspicious of the relationship between our Prime Minister, Tony Blair, and your President, President Bush, from a very, very early days. In the immediate aftermath of 9/11 in 2001, Tony Blair suddenly pitched up in Washington, D.C. as the great friend and ally of America against, we'll fight terrorism with you, and sat in Congress and watched an address of both houses, and then stood up and got a round of, standing ovation, round of applause from all American politicians. Years later, or not that much later, the one picture that told me that Tony Blair was in this for his own benefit, to big himself up in the face of the world, I'm the second most important man in the world, was when he was strolling around President Bush's ranch in Texas with his hands in the pockets of his jeans, with a smug smile on his face, looking like the cat that got the cream, because he was number 2 in the world. Did you ever get that impression?
I did, and what I always thought was pathetic. Now, I happen to think George W. Bush is a pathetic example of humanity. I never took the guy seriously, and I'll tell you why. He was always a loser all his life.
Yeah, he was. He was a drunk at one time, wasn't he?
He failed at everything he did, never could live up to his father, and then sort of caught fire and got maybe elected in 2000. But the way he did it was he ran as the son of a former president, but not his father. He ran as the son of Reagan. He made himself into a cowboy. He had a ranch.
Yeah.
He wore cowboy boots. He talked like a cowboy. He tried to be the second coming of Ronald Reagan.
Right.
And I always thought at the time that Tony Blair wanted to be the second coming of Margaret Thatcher.
He did.
And have this buddy-buddy relationship with the Reagan American president thing, which Reagan and Margaret Thatcher were a dynamite pair. They changed the world.
Exactly.
And for the better. But
of course.
Blair and Bush changed it for the worse.
Of course they did.
But is there not, is there not some comfort, probably is the wrong word, but perspective to be found, John, from the circumstances that they found themselves in? It was 9/11, I read Bob Woodward's book, Bush at War, and clearly he was very much on the side of going after Saddam Hussein no matter what, and 9/11 kind of gave him the excuse to do it. But, Blair's kind of defence...
That doesn't explain why Tony Blair wanted.
No, it doesn't. No. Blair's excuse basically is that, the whole world had changed because of 9/11, and basically he believed that if Saddam Hussein could arm in some way Al-Qaeda with weapons of mass destruction, it would be a very dangerous world indeed, and something had to be done. It's all very well looking back at it now and saying they shouldn't have thought like that, but at that time, people were very frightened, weren't they?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. And America was really scared, and America rallied to George W. Bush. He had a 89% or a 91% approval rating. I mean, it was unbelievable. You couldn't say a word against him for a year or two in this country after 9/11. And the country was united, and so was NATO in going into Afghanistan, where Al-Qaeda had launched the 9/11 raids from. But Bush had his own agenda of nailing Saddam, and when he lobbied members of Congress, he'd say, well, Saddam gassed the Kurds and he kills the Shia, and besides, he tried to kill my dad. And he took a personal vendetta and made national policy on it. That's Bush. I never understood why Tony Blair went along with that. That never made sense to me, other than he really wanted to be. Just
to extend that point, John, he thought it was unfinished business that he had to sort out for his father, except that his father was so much brighter than him and realised that actually we did get Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait, we did push him back into his own country, and that's as far as we went, because if we went any further, we'd have, invented the chaos in the world, which his son then went on to invent years later by getting rid of Saddam Hussein. He wasn't bright enough, Bush Jr., to realise that dictators have to exist in the Middle East to hold tribal factions together.
Okay, well, we agree on that. But why did Tony Blair not see that?
Well, because Tony Blair was dumb as well. Tony Blair was just in a blaze of glory. I am going to be... No,
I think you are.
No, I want to be President Bush's best friend. I want to be America's best friend. And I am certain, by the way, that Tony Blair had an eye to post-Prime Minister days. I'm saying that I think Tony Blair callously believed that by making himself popular, very, very popular with the American people, by siding with America, he would make himself the considerable fortune he has made when he was out of power. I believe that sincerely.
No, I think that's very unfair. And I think, because Blair's come out today and he's been talking about why he did what he did and when he made those decisions. And there's no doubt, and he hasn't defended it, that they obviously sexed up the dossiers that they come out, that when they saw the first dossier, it wasn't, strong enough on Saddam Hussein, so they changed all of that. But he says he honestly thought it was the right thing to do. And I'm just saying, John, and to you, Mike, as well, at that time, I think it's very disingenuous to say that any politician whoever he may be,
Yeah.
was only simply interested in making money out of the future
No,
of a conflict.
I believe
don't
that.
Think, no,
I believe
well,
that.
I think that's wrong.
I
And
believe
and
that.
I think, well, you said that. But I would say this, John, that surely if he says that at the time he thought it was the right thing to do, I mean, what other possible reason could there be? I mean, we've had all the mad conspiracy theorists as well. But surely he did think it was the right thing to do.
Well, I guess. I don't know. But, I mean, when they're talking about, quote, fixing the intelligence, unquote, that meant they made up their mind to go get Saddam, and then they said, we'll fake the intelligence to justify it. And that, to me, that's just dishonest. I don't think that's the way to go. And the price for that, besides all the dead people, wounded people, amputated, brain injuries, all of that, the other ultimate price is this ISIS. This ISIS is the result of this.
It is,
and look what they're doing.
Yeah,
but can you say with any? But can you say with any certainty? But can you say with any certainty, or can anyone say with any certainty, what would have become of the Middle East had the war not happened? Had Saddam Hussein been left in charge?
I will tell you. Yes, I can. I will tell you right now. If we had not done the second Gulf War, here's what the result would be. Saddam stayed in power, and his main obsession was Iran.
That's right.
And Iran's main obsession was Saddam. And they drained each other. They blocked each other. There would not be Iran marauding around the Middle East as long as Saddam was right next to them, lobbing cruise missiles in there all the time.
That's right.
That is what has destabilized the Middle East and enhanced the Iranians out of control. And we can't stop it now.
What about Syria? I mean, Syria is a land where nobody is in any mood to do anything apart from President Putin, it would seem. And thousands of people are being killed there, hundreds of thousands of people. And
wait a sec, Syria?
Yeah,
Syria would not have happened either.
Exactly, Syria would still be stable.
None of this would have happened
because the insurgents came from
the Iranians have destabilized all of these areas, and none of it would have happened.
Okay.
Anybody, the father Bush understood it, Scowcroft, they all understood it.
Yeah.
They tried to tell George W. Bush not to do it.
Exactly.
But the attitude of George W. Bush was, I'm going to do everything the exact opposite of my father. So my father hated these conservatives. I will become a conservative. My father raised taxes. I will cut taxes. My father wouldn't take Saddam out. I'll go finish Saddam off.
Yeah.
And my father lost for re-election, and I will win re-election. And guess what? He did.
Yeah.
He got the full 8 years, and so he would argue that it worked. But
to
when you see these poor guys with their brains blown out, their legs blown off, widows all over the place, that's not right.
There was another aspect to this as well, John, and you, Mike, and that is that Tony Blair wanted to win a war in the way that Mrs. Thatcher won the Falklands. He saw what the winning of the Falklands did for Mrs. Thatcher. It gave her a legacy.
You're not willing to give him any kind of credit for wanting to stop something bad happening in the world.
No, I'm not. And
I think that's ridiculous.
No, I've read a report, John, compiled by Sir Christopher Mayer, who was the ambassador from Great Britain to the United States, in which he says that President Bush actually gave Tony Blair the option to opt out of military involvement. He said to Blair, look, you're with me politically, that's great. I'm not sure we need the troops because we didn't have that many troops. And Tony Blair said, no, if we're going to come alongside you politically, we come alongside you militarily. I'm convinced Blair wanted to fight a war.
Yeah,
well, could be,
There's also the small matter. There's also the small matter of the oil as well, because Iraq had nearly a tenth of the world's oil reserves when it was invaded, right? And to say that the Chilcot report,
we never got any of it.
Yeah, but the Chilcot report has not mentioned the fact that there was oil there. The Chilcot report has not mentioned several cabinet papers which have produced.
It wasn't a motive for invading,
which have produced evidence that after the war was finished, that various oil executives were installed. When you had the whole Halliburton situation going on, there's a lot more to this, I think, than meets the eye. But John, sadly, we are out of time. We'll have to come back to you and maybe talk in a few more days because
thanks, John.
There's obviously going there'll be an awful lot of things said about this. Lots of different views are coming along. But I just think you can't make it black and white, this issue, and I think it really, and I've said it already.
I think it's a lot more simple than you're trying to make it, Mike.
No,
your complicated theories.
No, well, I don't think
Tony Blair was a megalomaniac, in my view. He wanted to fight a war.
That is ridiculous.
And he was looking to post-prime ministership and what the world was going to offer him then.
I think that's nonsense.
And by becoming very popular with the Americans, he saw that as a really good career option.
No, I think that's absolute nonsense.
Well, you might, but I don't.
Simplistic. Well, you can believe what you want.
And you can believe what you want.
And we can have a debate about it in a very reasonably measured way, if you like, or you can just shout at me.
Today you and I are not the same. You say you like the sun, I like the rain. So before we go do it all again, you better catch your own train.
Well, there's so many stories that we have to get through this evening.
Yes.
We shall try and get through a few of them now.
Yeah,
if
well,
Corky stopped spending money on lottery tickets, he could use the £10,000 to feed a goat if he got one, says Ashley.
That's not a bad idea, actually. I mean, I would like to get closer to nature. It's just that the very essence of my existence does not include owning a field.
Well, why don't you buy a house with a big garden?
I've had houses in the past, and it's just too much trouble.
But you've only ever owned houses that have been in these kind of rather what you would call jumped-up bourgeois cul-de-sac type places, haven't you? You've never actually owned a house.
I don't know what a jumped-up bourgeois type cul-de-sac
let me explain
is.
it to you. Any house that I've ever seen that you've owned has always been in one of these developments, isn't it? You've never actually owned a house that's been, set on its own somewhere in the country.
Well, I like new houses because new houses work, and old houses usually have leaky roofs and need a new boiler.
So that's the reason.
Got to do
you
the
have
electrics.
no romance in your soul at all.
Well, I think it's quite romantic to have a brand new house. I love the smell of paint.
Well, not if it's exactly the same as all the 50 other houses.
Love the smell of new carpet.
But not if it's exactly the same as all the 50 houses around you.
Why not?
Well, because it's not unique,
Rubbish.
is it?
It's uniform and it's good.
Oh, so you just like having the same things as everybody else?
No, I don't like having the same as everybody else. I like having a good house. And good houses are new houses because they're built with modern,
so
bricks and all that kind of stuff.
You don't like old houses, in other words?
Not really. I don't really like old houses, no, because they tend to be drafty and leak and the floorboards creak and all that kind of stuff.
Really?
I'm not interested.
No, you have no kind of creative juices, really.
I do.
No, you don't. You want to live in a sort of sealed unit. You only want to live in a flat or a brand new house that's in part of an estate.
That is absolute rubbish.
I just don't understand you at all.
Listen, just talking about them trains, by the way, I got another report in from one of my other journals.
Them trains?
Yes, the trains.
Those
trains. The trains that don't run.
Yeah.
Rising numbers of commuters will travel by car over the next 25 years.
Oh, that's good. Well, that'll be good for the roads then, won't it?
As fewer journeys are made by foot, bicycle, bus and train. This is an official report, and a lot of it is because public transport's become so unreliable.
Yeah, it'll become like America.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, because we don't have the road system that America has, and we don't have the ability to carry as many cars on each road as they have.
Yes.
The whole country will now be gridlocked.
That's right.
I was in the centre of London today.
Yeah.
And literally around Covent Garden, right, there was a series of traffic jams that just went on forever.
Well,
and a bus or two kept coming around. And these massive new big, what they call green buses, but single-decker, red-green bus.
Yes.
When I say red, it's coloured red, but it says it's green.
Yeah.
There was never anyone on it.
No.
Then this bus would come round. Do you know that bit with Covent Garden where you come up past the Drury Lane Theatre?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Just before the Piazza.
Yeah.
Huge bus. And about 3 times an hour, an empty bus would come round.
Yeah, I know.
And it would sit there with the engine pumping out because, of course, you couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Yesterday, I was working in just the other side of Tower Bridge, right? So that's kind of East London.
Yeah.
And I had to get to a meeting in Soho.
Yeah.
And madly, I don't know why I did this.
Yeah.
I jumped into a cab.
Yeah.
I came out of a studio, and I couldn't be bothered to walk the 300 or 400 yards to the tube.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd jump into a cab.
Yeah.
I must have been mad. An hour later, I got out in Soho.
Yeah.
And on the tube, it
would have taken you 25 minutes, maybe.
No, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
20 minutes, I reckon. And I don't know why I did it, but the traffic congestion on the way over was terrible. But listen to this, because what Boris Johnson left us from his legacy of the Mayor of London were all these cycle lanes all over the place, which have their own sets of traffic lights, by the way,
I know,
which cut across roads and stop traffic.
And stop signs, yeah.
Even when there hasn't been a bike on them for hours and hours and hours. I'm not joking.
Do you know, actually, at Stamford Street now, and I was coming in tonight because I took a different route in just for a bit of variety and got terribly caught up in traffic. But as you cross now Blackfriars Road, which is full of cycle lanes and all the rest of it, there's another red light. So when you come through the red light, which only goes green for 10 seconds,
that's right.
You get across the road, And instead of actually being able to then go through and down Stamford Street,
that's right.
There's another red light that stops you there.
Because of a cycle lane.
I don't know why.
No, isn't it a pedestrian crossing?
It must
isn't
be, yeah.
I think it's a pedestrian crossing.
It's a really stupid place to have it.
Anyway, listen to this. The Department for Transport published estimates of the number of different trips made between 2015 and 2040. It's a projection, OK? In response to a parliamentary question. It showed that people across Britain made an average of 22.1 cycle journeys in 2015, but that by 2040 this will have dropped to 20.5.
Right.
Cycle journeys are going down, not up. And yet we're building cycle lanes all over the place in every city
what does that tell you?
in this country.
Well, why are they going down if there's more availability to actually cycle safely?
Because people don't want to ride on bikes.
Because it's too dangerous.
Because it's too dangerous. Because it was a fad. You know, it was all trendy to have a bike and to dress up in lycra,
when you
cycle around and being grabbing the moral high ground. And now people have realised it's completely impractical.
But when you expect that because the Tour de France is on, there'd be more of these people out there in the old lycra because they look at it on TV and go, "Oh yeah, that's going to inspire me." Like during Wimbledon, you get loads more people playing tennis.
Yeah, but they're talking about a projection over 25 years, not 25 days when Wimbledon's on.
So
you know
they're
what
saying
I mean?
that they will go down, not that they have.
No, they will go down. They're saying that they will go down.
Right.
I mean, the point is...
Well, they might get that wrong, though, mightn't
you know, all these trendy, metropolitan types who think that they're saving the earth or they think that people will thank them for saving the earth because they're riding around in lycra on their bikes. They arrive at work and they're soaking wet because they're perspiring, because they're unfit and unhealthy and shouldn't be riding bikes in the first place. They've got to park the bike somewhere. They're probably knackered at the end of a day's work and think, I can't be bothered, I'm leaving the bike here, and get a taxi home. It's just a fad. It's just a passing phase. Nobody really wants to ride a bike to work.
Well, that's not true.
No,
I think more people would if they made it more pedestrianised and they made it safer. But they're going to have to do something
Do you know the sort of people who ride bikes to work?
Well, lots of people ride bikes to work.
No, do you know one in particular?
Lots of people ride bikes to work here at Talk Sport.
One in particular?
Who?
Jon Snow.
Who?
Jon Snow.
Jon Snow rides a bike.
Rides a bike
what's
to
wrong
work.
with Jon Snow? Just because you don't like him because he once snubbed you when you were doing a story with him.
No.
That's why you don't like Jon Snow.
No,
it's entirely personal
because
with you.
He is absolutely typical of the trendy metropolitan elite who think
Do you not regard yourself as one of the trendy metropolitan elite?
Definitely
then?
not.
Really? What do you regard yourself as part of?
Me?
Yeah.
Successful.
wrong with your eyes?
Successful. I've got hay fever.
You've got hay fever?
Yeah, I keep rubbing my eyes, yeah.
Oh, right. How was the shampoo tonight? Because you never explored that last night. You said that was why you were rubbing your, or dabbing your brow last night.
No, it's fine. Except the shampoo bottle doesn't work because I can't get all the shampoo out of it, and I've got a theory about that.
What do you mean you can't get it out of it?
I want somebody to invent a new one, but I've got a
Well,
master
you turn
plan.
it upside down, right? When you're not using it, right? Leave the cap on.
It still doesn't work.
Yeah, it will. And
No,
then
it doesn't.
When you go to use it, all of the shampoo will be congealed at the bottom.
Well, you think so, but it won't.
Well,
Do you know why?
I don't think so because
it's
that's
made
what I
of
do.
plastic.
Yeah.
The effect of the shampoo inside means that there's still a film of shampoo clinging to the plastic through the chemical reaction.
Yeah, but it all comes down to the bottom of the lid.
I've seen one of my.
Yeah, it does.
No, honestly, I've seen one of my scientific journals in which they're going to invent a new shampoo bottle that's got dimples on the inside, not the outside, the inside, so that it actually manages to expel every last drop of shampoo.
What you're basically saying
Save
is
your money.
What you're basically saying is that you're upset because you can't get the last drop of
Yeah, I
shampoo.
am. Yes.
Why don't you just buy a new one? You got plenty of money.
Well, I don't like waste. I hate waste. My mother taught me that.
Don't like waste.
My mother was brought up after the Second World War, right? We never wasted
it's not
anything.
Second World War anymore.
We didn't waste any potato peelings.
Really?
No.
What did you do with them? Make them into a hat?
No. What?
Did you make them into a hat?
You idiot. No.
What did you do with potato
Put
peelings?
them in soup. Just put them in soup, yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Dear God.
Potato? What don't? Have you
You're
never
some
had?
kind of Russian peasant.
Hang on. Have you never had potato skins in a trendy sort of?
I'm not a big fan of potato skins, but that's different. That's baked potato. Isn't it?
Trendy. What's it called?
Well, not in a trendy. No, you don't get potato
Bar.
skins in a trendy bar.
What do they call these bars? The trendy ones.
Well,
retro bars are they?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I can't remember
I have
what
no
they're
idea
called.
what you're talking about.
You know these pubs.
You get potato skins in what you might call what I would describe as kind of fast food type places.
No.
You do.
You get skins, right? That's what
I
they're
don't
called.
eat potato skins.
Well, I do.
Well, where have you been where you get them? And I can guarantee you that it's not trendy.
There is a place down in Stockbroker Belt which is a very classy place, very classy joint.
Very classy, but you can't remember the name of it. Toby Carvery.
No, it's not Toby Carvery.
Weatherspoons.
No, it's not Weatherspoons.
I bet you can get them in Weatherspoons.
No, you can't.
Really?
And you get them as a starter, and for my main dish, I have Strogo, beef stroganoff.
Beef stroganoff?
Yeah.
What is this, some kind of 70s sort of throwback?
No, it's gastro. That's the word I was looking for. It's a gastro pub. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not trendy.
course
There's
it
nothing
is.
in Surrey that's trendy.
Of course it
Forget
is.
about it. You don't know what you're talking
Oh,
about.
where do you think trendy is
Well,
then?
trendy is in London,
In
right?
Camden. In Camden
well,
Town.
Camden is trendy.
Rubbish.
Yeah, it is.
We went to Camden, did a show there. It's like a pit.
Yeah, it's
not
a very
trendy.
It's a very up and coming area.
Up and coming. It's full of filth.
Yeah, it is full of filth.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
Particularly full of filth when you were there.
Can I tell you about these goats before we go
on.
any further?
Yeah,
Because
all right. You had some obsession with goats.
Well, no. I'm way ahead of the game here. You see, in one of my journals called Biological Letters, I spotted this report.
Biological Letters?
Biological Letters, yeah.
Who's written that?
It's
Who
a
publishes that?
it's a journal of science.
Oh yeah.
And it's compiled by researchers from Queen Mary University in London.
Uh-huh.
And the reason is because I'm having a look through some of tomorrow morning's papers, and I'm way ahead of the game.
Are you?
Because look at this report: Move Over Rover, goats are man's new best friends.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Right.
That's written by a science editor of a prominent national newspaper. But I'm
right?
already on the case. And you see, what happens is I discovered that a team of scientists had demonstrated that goats can work out how to break into a sealed box using levers,
Right.
which is a task used to gauge the intelligence in apes. Okay,
Right.
They can even
What's
remember
in the box?
Food.
Food.
Yeah.
Well, most animals can be trained to access food if you tell them how to do it.
No, not to open a, a plastic sandwich box
Yeah.
made by those people who make plastic sandwich boxes.
The
What are they
plastic
called?
sandwich box company.
No, you idiot.
Tupperware.
Tupperware, that's the one, the Tupperware box.
Yeah.
So goats from the Buttercup Sanctuary in Kent,
Yeah.
given clear plastic boxes containing food, and taught
They
that
can't open Tupperware.
Yeah, they can.
No way.
They can.
I don't believe you.
They can.
They've got hooves.
No, they can open
You
Tupperware.
can't open Tupperware with a hoof.
They can, because they do. They bash it until the top comes
Well,
off.
that's not opening it, is it?
It is opening
That
it.
is not opening it.
It is opening
no,
it.
Smashing it to pieces is not
They're
opening it.
They're not. They know at which angle to put pressure on the box so the lid springs off.
Really?
And that's very clever. No, I'm
Well,
serious.
No, I don't believe you.
Here, I'm telling you, goats from the Buttercup Sanctuary in Kent were given clear plastic boxes, Tupperware boxes containing food, and taught that if they knocked them over at the right angle, the lids would come off
Yeah.
and their treat would be released.
So they're knocking them over. They're not opening them.
They are. They're treading on them, honestly. And,
Yeah,
and,
but it's
and,
not the same. You said they were using levers.
Yeah, they use levers as well. I mean,
What levers for what?
a lever is a scientific expression for exerting pressure. Do you see what I mean?
So they're not actually
Yeah,
operating
yeah.
levers. They're
No,
not like,
no.
They're not like in the kind of the signal box at the old Southern Railway.
It's not like they work on the production line at Vauxhalls and pull levers to make
that
cars.
was the
and things
impression
like that,
you were giving.
idiots.
That's the impression you were giving.
Now, did you know also, goats were the first livestock species to be domesticated
Yeah.
10,000 years ago?
Yeah.
Did you also
Well,
know...
they're good for, but as somebody said, mowing the lawn. They're actually very good for keeping the
They are-
lawn.
they are
in,
very
sort
good
of
for that.
reasonable- I actually thought about getting a goat at one point.
Really?
Yeah.
What, for where you live now?
Yeah, because
to tidy up the field and
To
everything?
tidy up the garden. It's such a big
Why
garden.
don't you do that? Because I'm telling you now, they're great to have as a
Well,
pet.
because the
Your
problem,
two boys
well,
would
you
love their
can't- Yeah,
goats.
but you can't really have a dog and a goat unless
can.
you're going
They can.
to have some kind of massive menagerie.
No,
going on.
no, you can, because they've actually got very same instincts, and one of the instincts they have is
Yeah.
they both. Here, let me demonstrate. They both go. "Ugh." They have a pleading
dog
look.
doesn't do that.
Yeah, your dog has a pleading look to
Yeah.
human beings. Which is basically a help me look, you know what I mean?
I've seen a lot of goats, right? Because
Yeah.
if you go to, there's a lot of these
Yes.
little, say, petting zoos. I used to take my
Yes.
kids to when they were younger.
Exactly, yeah,
And
like
goats,
working farms.
yeah, like working farms. So there's almost
yeah.
a lot of goats. I've never seen a goat's expression change.
No, it does. And,
I've never seen it happen.
Goats can assume a pleading expression which dogs use to communicate with humans.
Yeah.
You know, when a dog wants something,
Yeah.
like, I want to go for a walk,
Yeah.
or I want my bone, or something like
Yeah.
that, they look at you with those doe-like eyes,
Yeah,
don't they? You
that's
know what I
true,
mean?
yeah, that's
well,
true.
Well, that's exactly what goats
Well,
do.
I've never seen a goat looking like that.
No,
goats,
no,
like,
they
have a
do.
certain look. They look like a goat. They don't, they don't really have much different, as far as I can tell, anyway.
They do.
Outward emotions.
Here, the conclusion from one of these scientists is that you can't work with a sheep on its own. Sheep are too stupid. People think that goats are the same, but they are very different animals. Anyone who's ever worked with both animals can tell you that. From our earlier research, we already know that goats are smarter than their reputation suggests.
Have you seen those goats in the Atlas Mountains over in North Africa who climb trees?
Oh, they climb trees. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
that's where the vegetation is they can eat.
That's right.
Yeah,
Goats
that's pretty smart.
Goats are incredibly nimble. I mean, in Wales, in places like Snowdonia, we used to go there as a kid, in the back of your dad's car.
Yeah.
You used to see goats climbing up sheer cliffs and all sorts of
Oh, yeah,
things.
they
They
can
do
do
all
all
that.
that,
Yeah. And anyway, the scientist says we know that in some areas goats are as intelligent as dogs, but there's been a lot more work done on dog behaviour, and we're really just scratching the surface. Goats cost only. This is facts and figures about goats.
Yeah.
In case you want to get one.
Yeah.
This is to help you out, okay?
Yeah, okay.
A goat usually costs between £50 and £250.
Right, cheaper than a dog then.
Cheaper than a dog. Adopting a rescue dog is roughly the same, but pedigree puppies fetch much more, which you know. Right. The average lifespan of a goat is 12 years.
Okay.
Dogs live between 10 and 13 years, so it's about the same lifespan, okay?
Okay, right.
Goats,
and what do they say about whether they need a companion? Well, would you get one goat or several?
No, you wouldn't need several. One goat can exist on its own. Goats are curious animals. They can escape easily, so you need a 6-foot-high chain-link fence.
Right.
If you needed a compound for them.
That is one of the problems, isn't it? Because that's a big compound, that is.
It is a big compound,
fence around your house.
Well,
a prison.
No, that's only put in at night, isn't it? Like a kennel, you see what I mean?
No, but he might escape during the day, though.
No, during the day, you'd have it wandering around your field, chewing your grass and everything,
wouldn't it? But it could escape.
No, it wouldn't escape. Where would it go? Where would it go?
Well, it would just go to the next field.
Yeah, well, you'd come back.
Or get on the road and walk up into the town.
Goats need hay.
And order some lunch.
No, don't be ridiculous, honestly. You're in the realms of fantasy. Goats need hay as bedding and to eat. Dogs have more expensive food tastes. Lifetime cost of a goat would be about £10,000 compared to between 16 and 30 for a dog. Do you realise you're spending between 16 and 30,000 on your dog?
It's not one of those things you think about, but I suppose you do. I mean, there's vets bills, there's food bills, there's all sorts of things, kenneling and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So, I suppose that's entirely possible.
But don't get a female goat.
Why?
You'd have to milk it twice a day.
Really?
Seriously?
Well, I wouldn't want to do that.
No, you need a male goat.
Then you can make goat's cheese, which
well,
I'm rather partial to.
You get goat's milk and all that kind of stuff.
I wanted to draw your attention to another serious story, which we've been talking about actually for a while.
Yes.
But did you know that hundreds of rail services have now been officially axed by Southern Rail?
It's a disgrace.
Because they've now put out a new timetable because of all the problems they've had in the last few weeks and months because of the work to rule, cancellations, delays.
It's not a disgrace.
341 fewer daily services on the revised schedule, which is going to affect you coming in and out of Stockbroker Belt, Surrey, isn't it?
Well, the main line is down to your part of the world, Sussex, but it infringes.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It sort of goes down central Sussex. It doesn't really go to Hastings that way.
It does. It impinges. It impinges on my area. But you won't believe it. What happened was the people running these railways, both the managers and the union bosses, were called to Parliament to give evidence because the situation's so bad.
Yeah.
Managers told the Commons Transport Committee that the Rail Maritime and Transport Union had created extra chaos for passengers by encouraging its members to stage sicky strikes. This is what I was told the other night.
That's right.
That it's not an official strike, it's not an unofficial strike, it's ringing in sick, okay? Right. Now, the RMT's Mick Cash, who was with the South East organiser Paul Cox, denied it was responsible, saying, our members are not taking informal action through sick leave. There has been an increase in levels of stress.
Yes.
Tory MP Hugh Merridam, who commutes every day...
It's all a game, this, isn't it?
It's all a game. Tory MP Hugh Merriman, who commutes every day from Crowborough in East Sussex. That's not far from you, is it?
Well, it's a bit further over than where I am, but not far.
OK, well, he comes from Crowborough to East Sussex to Westminster, launched a withering attack on the unions. He brought out and waved around his £4,000 Southern season ticket, OK? Yeah. It's £80 a week.
Right.
Yeah. And he said, I'm both a constituency MP for Southern Pastures and I'm a daily commuter, so I wear my badge with some horror. It's unbearable for us all. It's causing absolute misery.
And £4,000 a year for that.
Yeah, exactly,
privilege. Yeah, well, I was talking to somebody the other day who's in the in our business, and they were trying to book a guest who was coming in from that part of the world.
Right.
And they rang up and said, look, terribly sorry, I can't get in. There's no trains.
No trains.
There is literally no way to get from where I am in somewhere like Tunbridge to London. There's nothing going on.
I thought we were the 5th biggest economy in the world.
Well, you were. In fact, I think we were taken over by Brazil, so I think we moved down to 6th.
Brazil's gone way back.
That may now
Brazil's
gone back.
Receded.
But we
can't even run a decent train service. It's a damn disgrace.
It is ridiculous, isn't it? Absolutely horrific. Anyway, we're out of time once more. However, lots more tweets to read out.
Yeah.
You can tweet us, of course, at the 2 Mikes. Here's one from Bill, who says, goats opening Tupperware at the Buttercup Sanctuary, Porky.
Yeah.
Are you taking Red Bull intravenously tonight?
No.
You maniac.
No, it's true.
But just when everything is going fine and absolutely nothing is wrong, this funny little hedgehog's always around, and every time he wants to sing me this song. Oh, Oh, you know all the words and you sung all.
We are the Two Mics, and a good one here from James, who's tweeted out the Two Mics. I hope you don't forget to wish your USA listeners a happy Independence Day, because it is still July the 4th over there, which of course it is.
It is, yeah.
So we should wish them a happy Independence Day.
Indeed, we should. Happy Independence Day. And did you have any good July the 4th over there?
I had some great July the 4th.
Yeah,
over
so
there,
did I, yeah.
The one I remember most was very, very hot, though, was when I went to Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Because Maggie Hall had a party, funnily enough.
Oh, right.
And we went and watched the firework display on Capitol Hill.
Right.
And I think it was something like Roberta Flack.
Yeah.
Singing,
which
was lovely.
on the Mall.
But I was so I'd never been that hot in my life.
No, that's right.
It was awful.
Maggie's place was round the back of Capitol Hill, wasn't it? In that suburb there. I went and had...
well, it was actually on the Capitol Hill.
That's right, on the other side of, that's right. Because I went and
Which was quite a dodgy area, funnily enough.
Yeah, it was. It was a bit. It was up and coming, so to speak.
I think it still is.
Yeah, I went to have lunch with her there once in a restaurant there, and Maggie was an amazing character.
She was.
She liked
lovely
to drink.
woman.
She liked to drink. Yeah,
she's still around. I think I haven't spoken to her for many a year. But,
well, Brazil and I went to DC amazingly about 10 years ago. After the terrorism and all that kind of stuff. To the flight of death, so to speak, into Washington DC because it had been cancelled. And while we were there, we were in a bar somewhere and we got talking to some guys. Said we, a British radio presenter. They said, we know an English, journalist person. It was Maggie.
Oh, right.
And we rang her up.
Yeah.
And
Did she come down?
No, she couldn't come down, but we spoke to her on the phone.
No, very nice.
Yeah,
what a great story. Really more like that.
Yeah. Sorry?
You got any more stories like that?
Loads of stories
Tremendous.
like that. Yeah.
Now, we have to do listography, right?
Yes.
Which we'll do a little bit later on in the hour.
Yes.
We've got some suggestions here. If you've got any more suggestions, you can send them in. Hashtag listography.
Yeah.
Most famous person met, says Simon. Have we not done something like that? I'm not sure. Most famous person met.
I don't think we have.
Okay. 3 world records you could attempt to beat.
Yeah.
3 toys you had that are now worth money.
Yes.
Your favourite 3 photographs.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Your 3 best role models for future generations. The 3 careers you would have liked and why if you weren't top journalists or world-class radio presenters.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's tongue-in-cheek.
I quite like that.
You like that? What,
Yeah.
3 jobs you would have done?
Yeah, sure.
We could also do your 3 favourite albums out of the album list, but maybe that's for another time.
Well, no, I mean, it's very relevant. It's the anniversary today, the 60th anniversary of the start of the pop charts in this country.
Okay.
So why not?
Should we do our 3 favourite albums?
Let's do that.
That's going to be tough, though. It's going to be like 3 favourite books, isn't it? There's so many to choose from.
Yeah, but I mean, you've just got to sift your mind
Well, I
and
know
get
what
the
yours
3
are gonna
best.
be. Yeah, 3 Queen's greatest hits, ABBA's greatest hits, and Beatles' greatest
Well,
hits.
why don't we make a rule that it can't be greatest hits?
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
3 favourite
you
albums.
haven't got any albums that aren't greatest hits, have you?
I have, loads of
Do
them.
you have to have them? I think you should have to have them.
Or
as well.
have had them.
Okay.
Okay?
Or and lost them.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, fine. We'll do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
3 of favourite albums.
Okay.
Fine. Wonderful insight from Porky on hedgehogs, says Becky.
Thank you.
Basically, where is it? I've lost it here. Oh, here she goes. No, it's gone. Fine.
What?
Find it. No, my screen moved. Oh, here it is.
Okay.
Definitely adding hedgehog hotspots onto my next UK visit.
Good.
But why Ipswich?
Good. Well, I don't know, because it's near the coast. It's, it's...
Yeah, but you could pick anywhere. I find
Suffolk
myself
has
slightly
always
puzzled
been
by that.
very rural. Well,
Will the hedgehogs be financing these gardens through their own private hedge funds?
hedge funds, I like that. That's very funny. No, it's just that Ipswich have decided to take the responsibility for leading the battle to save the hedgehog, and everybody should commend that and say that's a very good thing.
Do you remember there was a big hedgehog cull that was quite controversial up in Scotland? I think it was on.
Why was
it
that?
might have been on the island of Mull or the island of Skye. I can't remember which one it was. Because, funnily enough, hedgehogs are quite damaging in certain ways to
Really?
birds' nests. Yeah,
Oh,
and,
dear.
there was a particular bird that chose this island in Scotland to nest in, and the hedgehogs kept going along and eating all the eggs.
Really?
So they decided to go into this island and basically kill all the hedgehogs.
Oh, that's terrible.
And there was an awful lot of uproar about it, except for the fact that it was being done for ecological reasons, because if they didn't kill the hedgehogs, then the birds would cease to exist.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they should have found another way to do it.
Well, what are they going to do? Ask them to get on a ferry?
Well, no, but
I
I mean,
get
there's-
the Pied Piper down there to
there's-
lead them all off.
There's non-violent ways of trying to do those things.
Yeah.
Listen, you know when you go out for dinner sometimes,
Yes.
or lunch or something like that.
Went out for dinner last night.
Yeah, I know you did. But I'm talking about like more in a business sense.
In
And
a business sense?
Yeah, and the person you're with, maybe you're being interviewed for a job or something like that or whatever.
I haven't done anything like that for a long time.
No, I haven't either. But, going out with maybe a superior person. So perhaps, you and I might have gone out for lunch with Sir Nick at the Express or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Do you know the way that that the business analysts say that you can impress your boss or a potential employer.
Well, I can tell you what you shouldn't do, and that is to get completely bladderated and make a fool of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what normally would happen in these situations. Right?
Well, not necessarily.
In the journalistic world, sometimes people would take you out for lunch to see how actually you can handle the drink.
Oh, definitely.
Didn't they?
Definitely. I remember before I got my job in Manchester on the Express, Stan Blenkinsop, who was mischievous like that, he took another applicant out for lunch.
Right.
And they came back at 4 o'clock. And then Stan asked him to knock out a few lines on an agency story that had come in or something like that.
Right.
And the boy went down to sit at a desk. In those days, we still had typewriters. And he leaned forward and vomited all over the typewriter. Seriously.
I guess he didn't pass the
audition.
audition.
He was never seen again.
When I first went to America, I got a job with one of these weekly magazines.
Yeah.
And I think it was on a Wednesday or something. That was the day that it went to press. So everybody went down to this little pub, and it was a place called Tarrytown, called the Mustard Seed, right?
In Tarrytown,
yeah. And I said, all right, well, I'll come with you, yeah. It was just outside of New York, really. And so we were all out, and more as the afternoon wore on, and there was no idea that anyone was going back to work, the phone would start to ring,
yes.
and, first one guy would get the call and go back, then another guy would get it. Well, finally, it was me and one other guy.
Yeah.
And and this was my first day at the job.
Yes.
Because they just asked me to come in for a shift.
Yeah.
And I actually got a call saying, are you coming back? And I went, oh, yeah, OK, I'll come back. And they were staggered that on my first day of work that I would have gone and got absolutely blutered. And I said, well, that's what everybody else was doing.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
And I came back, there was a typewriter. It's actually quite difficult to type on a typewriter when you've had a few.
Yeah, that's right.
The fingers keep going through the key.
They probably thought that as you were the new boy, you'd seek to impress by coming back first.
They did think that, yeah.
Yeah, but you didn't.
But they still gave me about 6 months worth of shifts after that.
That's all right, yeah, I suppose. Now, the reason I'm telling you a story is because what you're supposed to do is you sit down and then you always let the superior guy order first.
Yes.
And then you are supposed to say, oh, that's interesting. I think I'll have the same. Thank you.
Really?
That gets you the job.
No, you see, that sounds creepy.
No,
to me.
that's and me as well. But this is what these people who run these business courses are saying. Scientists at the University of Chicago, right, studied 500 people to determine whether eating the same chocolate, sweets, or crisps or main course would help them agree in negotiations. Researchers found
chocolate, sweets, or crisps.
Yeah,
what kind of dinner is that?
I've no idea, but it says main courses as well.
All right, okay.
So, if the guy says, I'll have chicken, whatever, you say, I think I'll have that as well. You have a better chance of convincing your boss you deserve a pay rise if you eat the same meals as him.
Does that apply to the same drink as well? Like, for example, you meet in a bar and the guy stands there and says, I'll have a gin and tonic. Do you say, oh, I'll have a gin and tonic as well?
Well, it doesn't say anything about that. Doesn't say anything about that. But anyway, look, I always thought that incredibly... Do you know what? I would say exactly the opposite. I think if you go into a restaurant and the superior person, the senior person, and then you say, oh, I'll have one of those as well, that is an act of real grovelling.
Well, it is, yeah. And funnily enough, I would say, and you may be in the same position, I've been in more situations like that where I've been interviewing somebody for a job rather than actually, applying for one.
Yeah.
And I would always take something like that as a really creepy thing to do.
Well, I'd also...
knock them off the list.
I'd say, not only is it creepy, I'd say this man hasn't got a mind of his own, or this woman hasn't got a mind of her own.
Or they're just trying to impress you in some way.
She says, oh, you're really good at choosing what to eat. I'll have yours. I think it's mad.
No, I think that doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
Dreadful.
I think it's dreadful as well. But I remember once Sir Larry Lamb took us all out for lunch at the
Savoy.
No, in New York at the South Street. Near where the New York
South Street Seaport.
Post was. Yeah, South Street Seaport. And he insisted we all had what he had. He was having a ribeye steak.
Well, I was going to say, have you ever had that situation where somebody says, we'll have two of these, and you're just supposed to eat it?
Oh yeah, he was having a ribeye.
What's that noise?
I don't know.
Sorry, information device.
I think it's the information device. He was having a ribeye steak, and he told the waiter, "We'll all have a ribeye steak." Medium, well done, whatever, and that was it.
Really?
We all had to have it.
That's awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely dreadful.
Yeah.
How about this from JL? He says, thanks for the Independence Day shout-out. Love you guys. MC says, Norwich should get more hedgehogs. People might actually go there. Plus, they can get one up on Ipswich.
Well, Norwich, of course, is in Norfolk. Ipswich is in the mighty county of Suffolk.
Indeed.
Yes.
You still get paid for hedgehogs on South Uist in the Hebrides, says Ranger. So it must have been South Uist. There you go.
You still get what?
You get money for killing hedgehogs.
Oh, it's terrible. I'm not going there.
No, because they eat all the birds' eggs.
Oh, I'm not going there.
They're like they're preying on these birds.
They don't move that fast, hedgehogs.
No, well, the eggs don't move at all.
But hedgehogs don't climb trees to birds' nests.
Well, apparently they do.
No, they don't.
How else are they getting them?
Well, there must be birds that nest on the
maybe they're parachuting in. I don't know. But all I know is that there was a cull going on.
Birds that nested
on
the
ground. And it had to be done.
It's not
anyway,
good.
Coming up, there's your phone making another noise again.
No, sorry, I don't know what that is.
How'd you mate Liam Gallagher, by the way?
Well...
That is, of course, the Oasis best-selling
yes.
album, What's the Story, Morning Glory.
That's right, 5th best-selling album of all time since the chart started in 1956.
Yes, have you got it?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I've got 2 versions. I've got one in each.
You heard 2 versions?
No, I've got 2 versions of it.
Right.
No, I haven't. I've got 2 copies
What do you mean?
of
You've
it.
got what are you saying?
I've got 2 copies.
Why have you got 2 copies?
I've got one in Stockbroker Belt and I've got one on the coast.
Oh, okay.
'Cause I like to listen
See,
to
this
it
is
all
why
the time.
Spotify is a good thing to have. You've got Spotify, you can have the music wherever you go. You just have it on your device and you just play it wherever you are.
What device?
Well, you can have it on a laptop. You can have it on your home computer. You can have it on your phone. Whatever you
have it
like.
on your phone?
You can, yeah.
Well, and then you plug your phone into a console when you go to your house.
Put it in a dock or something like that. You could do that. Have you got one of those docks?
No, but I'm going to get it all sorted.
You should.
I need a new telly down on the coast. I'm going to get one of those curved ones.
Oh, are you? I think those are those. I think they're going to kind of be phased out. I don't think a curved TV is the future.
Oh, really?
The only way you can have a curved...
just come in, though.
Yeah, I know, but a lot of things come in and then disappear. Remember, the 3D TVs were going to be massive, and then nobody really enjoyed watching them.
No,
so that all
they
died
disappeared,
a death.
yeah.
And the problem with these curved ones is, unless you're sitting directly in front of it...
That's what I do.
Yeah, I know, but if you had other people in your house, which I know you don't normally...
Not very often.
If they're off to the side, they can't really see what you're seeing.
I don't care about them.
I know you don't.
I want the best possible vision.
That's the point.
And when I see it, so it wraps around me. I'll get a century-round sound system as well. So
century-round?
Yeah, it'll be like being in the cinema.
Yeah, it will be, yeah.
Anyway, let's let our listeners know that the number 1 best-selling album of all time, since the chart started on July the 22nd, 1956, that's 60 years ago today, is the Queen Greatest Hits.
Queen's Greatest Hits, I bet you got that.
I have.
Yeah.
And it's followed by number 2, ABBA Gold. ABBA's Greatest Hits.
ABBA's Greatest Hits.
Now,
So
always...
that proves to you and to me, of course, that basically, you are the average consumer because you've got both of those albums.
Of course I have.
I haven't got the Queen's Greatest Hits.
And you've always mocked me, so no, is that all you've got, Greatest Hits?
Because that is all you've got.
Sorry?
You've just got Greatest Hits albums, haven't you?
No, I've got loads of other albums.
What's this one? This is Queen, isn't it? Bohemian Rhapsody. Do you play it very often?
I don't play Bohemian Rhapsody very much because it's not my favourite song, but I love so many of the Queen hits like Radio Gaga and We Will Rock You.
I'm just going through this list of 60 albums to see how many I actually have.
Killer Queen and all that kind of stuff. So that's 1 and 2. Now, the biggest selling studio album ever, i.e. one that's not greatest hits, you won't be surprised to know, is the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Not surprised at all by that.
Absolutely. And number 4, which is amazing because it only came out in 2011, so that's 5 years ago, is Adele 21.
That is remarkable that she is in that company, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing because when you think about it, much further down the list, for instance, Michael Jackson, Thriller, 1982, Adele beats him.
Yeah. That's number 6. He's also in with Bad as well at number 9.
He is, yeah.
So 2 Michael Jackson albums there.
Yeah. Now, Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory, number 5.
Yeah.
And as I said, I've got 2 copies of that. One of your favourites, Pink Floyd, The Dark Side of the Moon, number 7.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I was surprised about to see Adele above that, because people are still buying these older albums, right? I mean, I'm not sure about Oasis, but certainly people are still buying Dark Side of the Moon. Yeah. Not least because after a few years you might have to buy it again because you've broken it or it's worn out or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
I'm getting quite a good tick list here of... I'll be able to tell you soon how many of these albums I've actually got.
We're all fascinated and waiting for that verdict, Mike.
Well, because I think you should do the same thing. I think what you should do is go through the same process, and you can tell me how many of them you've got. Because you see number 10, there's another Greatest Hits album from Queen.
It is,
Greatest Hits 2.
I know, it's amazing,
so,
isn't it?
I mean, have you got that one as well?
No.
Why not?
Well, I might have it, but I don't recognise that cover.
You've missed
as being one of in my collection. I've got Rumours, Fleetwood Mac, which is number 11. I've got Bridge Over Troubled Waters, which is number 21. I've got The Beatles, 2000, which is number 20.
That's 1, isn't it? Isn't that the one with all the number 1s?
Yeah, the number 1s, yeah.
That's a new Beatles album, though, isn't it? So none of the other Beatles albums are in here. Like the original albums as such. Why are you making that noise?
I'm just trying to find out. Tango in the Night, I've got Fleetwood Mac 54. Rumours, of course, I've got.
Have you got Progress by Take That, number 57?
No, definitely not.
All right.
No.
How about Swing When You're Winning, Robbie Williams?
No, I haven't got that. I wouldn't buy that.
Very popular down in Wales, that one.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be. ABBA's Greatest Hits. The first version, which was published in 1975, is at number 46.
Right, have you got that one as well?
Probably.
Because ABBA Gold is the one that most people have got. That's the one that's 2, isn't it?
Yeah, and that was released in 1992.
Yeah.
There's an amazing collection of records. Dire Straits actually surprised you. They're in number 8. Brothers in Arms, 1986 record, which has notched up sales of more than 4 million. 5th studio album from the British rock legends.
I've got 34 of these 60 albums.
Have you really?
Yeah,
That's amazing. That is amazing. Tracy Chapman, you got her?
Tracy Chapman, yes. I saw Tracy Chapman actually live.
Really?
In New York, yeah.
Coldplay?
Coldplay, yes.
Parachutes?
Yeah, got that. There's quite a few Coldplay albums in here as well. X and Y's in there as well.
Bat Out of Hell, Meatloaf.
Got that. The
Spice Girls, number 29, Spice Girls.
Have you got that?
No, have you?
Yes.
Have you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I bought the Spice Girls album along with everybody else because, funnily enough, my daughter was about 7, I think, when that came out.
See, yeah,
and she loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I bet she did. Yeah. In fact, little girls in those days used to do an imitation of Victoria Beckham with a pout, with a hairbrush.
Well, I think it was her 7th birthday, and we rented out like the village hall. And she and all her little friends from school were doing the, if you want to be my lover, and I felt it slightly kind of off-putting actually. Yeah. With 7-year-old girls doing this kind of Spice Girls dance. It was a slightly queasy moment for me, have to be said.
No, I can understand what you're saying. So that's amazing. The history of pop in one compilation of records, eh?
Indeed. So you're claiming that because of the 2 greatest hits albums at the top, that you're entirely kind of justified in just buying the greatest hits. But you see what you miss out on, though, and this is the reason I say you should try doing other things, is that you miss out on an awful lot of the songs that they write that actually didn't become a massive hit.
Well, maybe, but I haven't got time to listen to all them.
Haven't you?
No, I only listen to the hits because I know that I like them, and I can't spend time lying around saying, "Oh, I tell you what, I think I'll play this record by, somebody like The Verve or something." What was that called? Autumn Hymns or something.
The Drugs Don't Urban Hymns.
Urban Hymns, that's right. Yeah, Urban Hymns, and just in case, and if there's 12 tracks on it, I might listen to it for, how long would that take, an hour or something like that, and find out I like one of the records. Why would I bother?
Well, then you can get a playlist on Spotify, and you can just take the one song that you like and make a whole list of songs that you can play in the car.
But I wouldn't bother listening to the album in the first place.
But that's what I'm saying. You should find the one song that you like and then make your own playlist.
But I can only find the one song I like. I've listened to all the other records.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So now listen.
Anyway, the reason I started this conversation before you started banging on about all these records was I was asking you about Liam Gallagher, because you got into a spat with him, which we talked about on the radio yesterday. Right. But there may be people who are not aware of what's happened at the latest. That's going on.
Well, it happened on last Friday, just to get to the start, and Liam Gallagher, who you pointed out has 1 million followers, but does not follow one person.
No, exactly. Yeah, very narcissistic. He doesn't follow anyone at all.
Exactly. So he puts out a note last Friday, and I was having some lunch somewhere and looked at it, thought it was rather amusing, that he said "our kid" and spelt it RKID, so he's referring to Noel Gallagher.
Yeah, that's what he calls him, right?
Yeah, as confirmed today, Oasis will never reform. So, I've responded to lots of Liam Gallagher's protestations in the past, and he's never even noticed, which I don't expect him to.
But he noticed this time.
He noticed this time because
it's probably because you said it's not very surprising he doesn't want to reform, because you're, sort of. How did you describe him?
All I said first of all was you can't really blame him, can you? He's a Lennon McCartney type musician, and you're a pub singer.
Yes,
and he took exception.
He didn't like that, did he?
But the language he sent out
shocking.
in
we
condemnation
can't read out any of his.
Not on
his
a family
tweets.
show.
No.
Not on a family show.
But you know what's interesting is that he hasn't actually been back on Twitter since your little spat.
No.
So I wonder if you've chased him off Twitter.
Well, I don't know. A few people said, "Hey, Liam Gallagher put Porky in his place, once and for all." I don't agree.
He did call you Papa Smurf, which I can say.
Oh, he said, "You little freak, go off and play with your Noel doll." Yeah. That was the best of it.
And you haven't even got a Noel doll.
No, I haven't got a Noel doll, no. That was the best of it. But the worst of it was really horrible language, to be honest, and quite offensive.
But you would expect that from a guy like that,
I suppose you would. Look, and in one of my tweets to him, I said, "Look, I admire you so much, I want to be you. I wish I'd led your life. All I'm saying is, pal, that your vocals were largely loaded by your brother Noel." And then, he came back again, and I said, "Well, hang on, can anybody name one great song you wrote?" He then claims he wrote "Look Back in Anger."
Don't look back in anger.
Don't look back in anger, yeah that's right.
Which, of course, he didn't, right?
Sorry?
He didn't write it, though.
Well, I've no idea.
I mean, it's never been said that he wrote it.
Well, I always thought Noel Gallagher had written that song.
Well, he wrote all those songs.
Well, that's what I thought, yeah. But anyway, you've got to give him some credit for, developing the sound of Oasis. I don't know how much credit he gets for writing the songs.
Maybe what we should play you is something from BDI, which was his solo band that he had for a while.
Didn't do that well, did it?
It didn't do terribly well, no.
Exactly.
But we can judge it, though, and you can listen to it and see if you like it.
Yeah, we could,
Johnny says this: watched Oasis at Nebworth in '96 in front of 120,000 people.
Oh, amazing.
When they were the biggest band in the world.
Exactly. exactly.
Well, they were the biggest band
Yeah, they were.
in lots of parts of the world, but one of the things was they never quite cracked America, did they?
No, they didn't. And do you know why? Because they went to America without Liam.
Well, that was the time that I met. I had to go out and meet Noel at Chicago
That's right.
O'Hare Airport,
That's
where
right.
he told me to F off because he had to leave without Liam, and they
That's
started
right.
to tour without Liam.
They did. What happened was they had some bust up, right? And I remember at Heathrow Airport, he got out of the car and refused to get on the plane.
Right.
And when he was asked what he was doing, he said, and I remember it, he pointed with two fingers to his throat and said, voice, and house. And he claimed he had to buy a house.
Voice House.
Voice, house.
Right.
Voice, house. You get it?
I don't get it.
And well, he was claiming his voice had gone,
Right.
so he couldn't sing. But he also claimed that due to some domestic incident he was involved
He had to
in.
go back to the house.
No, he had to go and buy himself a new house.
Oh, I see.
Which, you can do any time of the day or night, really,
Right.
when you've got a few million quid.
Well, you can.
But
But that was the thing. But also the tour was quite a small tour in terms
That's
of the
right.
size of venues, and they never quite got any bigger than
That's
that.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. But that was supposed to introduce him to America. So the rest of the band fly off to America. Noel then takes on all the responsibilities, not only having written all the songs, not having sort of producer and played lead guitar on them, then had to sing as well. And without a shadow of a doubt, Oasis, without their iconic lead singer, were not the same band in America that they'd been here during their development.
No, that's very true.
Yeah.
We are the two mics. We're going over to Beijing to talk to Peter Smith in 1 second. Let me just read you this. It says from David, most great albums actually tell a story from the first to the last track. Greatest hits are a bastardisation of these particular stories. And Johnny says, an absolute fact is Oasis stole the name of their band from the Oasis Leisure Centre in Swindon. I didn't know if that was true or not.
Did they?
But they didn't really steal it, did they? I mean, they just decided to name themselves that. So
there's quite a few things called Oasis. There's a drink called Oasis,
there is,
in plastic bottles, which you buy in railway stations and all that kind
well,
of
there
stuff.
are other places where you can buy it. It's not just available in railway stations in plastic bottles.
No, but that's where I, that's where I see a lot
that's
of it.
you, and that is you in a nutshell, isn't it?
Well,
because you only buy Oasis drinks in a railway station, you think that's the only place they get sold.
No, not necessarily.
It's typically you, that.
Not necessarily.
Anyway, let's talk about much more important things, because world affairs, world events, etc., are happening all over the place, and in China, where they're watching very closely our economy.
Yes.
It could be that there's some opportunities to be discussed. Peter Smith is here. Peter, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning. Actually, from Shanghai, not Beijing.
Oh, you're in
Lovely.
Shanghai. I'm sorry,
Lovely.
I was misinformed. Now, maybe start
No problem. It's absolutely frying.
Let's talk about the economy here, because obviously you'll have seen the whole Brexit fiasco and, the uncertainty that's going on. Nobody seems to know who's running what and whether, the Tories are going to have a new Prime Minister, whether Labour are going to have any opposition left at all. What's been the reaction in China to, sort of the fall of the pound and sort of investment opportunities?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. Of course, I think one way is the fact that Britain is seen as very much, from a business point of view, for many Chinese people, as a way maybe sometimes into Europe, or at least it was perceived as this way, because there's so much culturally in the past that connects China and Britain historically as well, much more so than with some of the other European countries. So tourism's massive, Chinese tourism incoming as well. So all these connections, really, I think the Chinese were a little bit worried here that there might be some disconnect. Britain has been very helpful in fostering Chinese investment into Europe, and they're a bit worried that if Britain departs, that friend in there, in the European Union, might no longer be there. On the other side, with the pound dropping, that's great for tourism, Chinese tourism.
well, not only tourism, Peter, but a friend of mine who deals in property says that with the fall in the pound, the Chinese are now going to pile in and buy even more property than they've bought already, because London, they say, can only ever increase in value.
Yes, that's right. I mean, London, whatever happens in or out of the European Union, is always going to be a very desirable destination for Chinese investors. Property, I said to my dad, actually, before the referendum, I said that were Britain to pull out of the European Union, Britain's going to be owned by China in 20 years.
Yes, that's right.
There's going to be less interest from EU investment itself. The Chinese will nip in there, especially if the pound takes a tumble. I don't think you can underestimate the respect that the Chinese have for Britain and the traditions as well. I do a lot of work here in education for universities, Chinese and British universities. Universities in Nottingham, you might know, has a collaboration with China.
Well,
So
Porky knows about the University of Nottingham, don't you? Because you went to Trent Polytechnic.
No, I went
close by.
I went to the University of the Trent, which is the other university in Nottingham, Peter.
Very good university down the road.
Indeed. You're absolutely right.
So what you're saying, Peter, is that there might be some hesitance about what will happen with the sort of European connection. But, I mean, if, for example, because nobody's really quite sure whether the UK will, in fact, leave in the sort of in the complete sense. It will kind of, have a different part to play in the relationship with Europe. Might be different, but, it may be not that dissimilar to what we have now. But what you're saying is that China would still have a pretty good relationship with Britain in terms of the kind of trade and everything else.
Yes, I think so. I think that the tradition and also the respect between countries is there. I think there will be some disconnect, though, because, as I said, Britain was seen as an integral part of the European Union, and that was important for China to get into that market. So I think there will be some problems with that. And, for example, a Chinese company might think of buying a British car company or something like this. It might reconsider that now and think of relocating inside the EU and not inside Britain. So I think that is going to affect it. At the end of the day, the EU is a bigger market than Britain.
It is, Peter, but the Chinese people are very articulate in business matters. And I'm sure they must realise that when they deal with companies in the EU, they are dealing with companies that provide a lot of red tape in business. The whole idea of Britain getting out of Europe, or one of the big ideas, is to free ourselves from the shackles of this immense European legislation, which we think slows our economy down. So we expect to be a better proposition in the future.
I think you get really going into political aspects here, Mike. I mean, the thing is, red tape will have to be replaced with more red tape if it's not there. So it's we really have to wait and see whether the red tape is actually an issue at all. And also, as well, you've got to remember that the free market or the open market is not just an open market. It basically removes so much of those regulations and things you have to do for international trade. So all these things, little things which we don't even think about, will have to be reintroduced. So I think we're ready for a lot more red tape, Mike, actually.
So do you think that might discourage perhaps future investment? Because we've seen a lot of Chinese investment in the football business, particularly in the Premier League and in other situations as well. Do you think that might sort of be put on hold for a while?
Well, I think I think the entertainment industry, of which football is an arm of, I think that's out on its own, really, when it comes to this sort of stuff. Perhaps we'll see some reintroduction for foreign quotas for foreign players, etc. But I don't think it's going to affect at all, how much Ronaldo costs or how much he's attractive to a Chinese person, or Gareth Bale in the future if he was going to China. I don't think that would affect the football industry at all, if truth be told.
Okay.
No.
Now, what's this story about China banning news websites from using stories gleaned from social media?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is really something which it's the vagueness of it which is strange, because it says you cannot use. I think it's the wording of something is you're not allowed to invent stories based on imagination or rumours or something like that.
That would have ended Porky's career back in the days of his tabloid reporting.
Well,
pretty much
maybe.
none of the red tops would have even existed.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure as Mike knows, there is no such thing as a made-up story. There is always a kernel of truth there somewhere.
Exactly.
Along the line. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, Mike. The Red Sox, they never make up a story, and there is something there always. But the thing is that with this, I think it's so much open to interpretation, because if you say something's a rumour, what does that mean? Does that mean that people don't like some new law that's been introduced or some new policy, and they start disagreeing with it on social media? Does that mean that the media is not allowed to cover it or not allowed to publicise it? There can't be any demonstrations. It's so open to interpretation.
Is it more about sort of cracking down on people using social media in a way and using and accessing Twitter and that kind of thing?
Well, I think one thing you've got to remember, Mike, is that there's no anonymity over here when it comes to social media. With Twitter and Facebook, of course, you can be anonymous back in the UK or in other countries. Here you can't. You have to register. And when you register on a website, say Weibo or WeChat, one of the really big social media here, you have to register your ID number. So there's no such thing as anonymity. So the fear is always there. Always there that if you say something wrong, that you will be, punished in some way. So yes, of course, this is just a way of making as well the mass media, the newspapers and the websites. It's trying to get them a little bit more under control, because I think there is a feeling probably in the central government in China that they've become a little bit lazy, and they are starting to base some of their editorial meetings in the morning around things that they're seeing on social media. So I think they're trying to rein them in and trying to get a real, trying to get a handle on it before these rumours tend to spread. But what does rumours mean? That's so much open to interpretation.
Sure, absolutely. And talking about stories, Pete, because always fascinated me. Now it's a terrible tragedy that 180 people have been killed in flooding along the Yangtze River. Now, just tell us a bit about the Yangtze River. It's one of the world's great rivers, but unknown to the West for such a long time. But this is the river, isn't it? That Chairman Mao used to swim up and down in 50 miles a day and all this kind of stuff,
really?
Just to prove how hard he was.
Was it really him, though?
Yeah, you hook, line, and sinker yourself for that one, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, one of the great rivers of the world. I think, isn't it Monty Python who wrote a song about the Yangtze?
That's right. River full of fish, I think the line was, wasn't it?
Yes, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, obviously it's a tragedy what's happened to those people, but we should also say that regular flooding is much more common here in this part of the world. It's not so much the fact that floods happen, it's preparedness for them that's really the problem, because they can be doing a lot more when it comes to protecting communities against the waters. I think that's really the story here. The floods are going to happen. We know that. Increasingly, they're going to happen.
How long is the...
We've seen the problem back in the UK with that as well.
Oh, we have indeed. How long is the Yangtze, Pete? And, is it, is it revered in China like the, that river in India that everybody reveres?
Well, the Ganges.
Called? The Ganges, yeah.
The Ganges. Yeah, I mean, the Ganges has much more religious overtones, of course, down in Varanasi, if any of you have ever been there.
Yeah.
But yes, it is. It's seen, of course, and it is named in this shall we say, this communist literature as well, as, like you say, Chairman Mao had a relationship with it. So yes, it is. But I really don't think there's so much about the name of the river here, Mike. It's to do more with the fact that there should be much more preparedness, especially with a burgeoning economy. A lot of people here are a little bit worried about where the funds are going to, why they're paying their taxes, if every year we have these big floods and so many 100 people die. It's a preparedness issue. It's the same as we're having in Britain as well.
I can fully understand that.
Peter, thank you very much indeed.
Pete, thanks very much. Great to speak to you.
I don't know why you were asking him what the length of the Yangtze River was. I mean, it's not why we get like a China correspondent.
Yes, it is.
But I can tell you the length of the Yangtze River if you want. It's 3,915 miles.
That is incredible. Do you know how far that is?
Yeah, I do, yeah. 3,915 miles.
That is the distance from, let me tell you, from Glasgow to
where?
I'll tell you now.
It might take some time to work it out.
To Turkey.
Glasgow to Turkey?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think it's...
it is.
I think it might be further than that.
No, I think it is.
I'll check it out for you.
Imagine a river that long. Imagine getting in a canoe in Glasgow and just going with the flow and whoosh, off you're away, and very soon you'd be in Istanbul.
Amazing what goes through your mind. You know what that is? Recognise the voice? Have you been struck dumb?
Which what?
Have you been struck dumb?
No, I'm thinking.
Really?
I'm thinking aloud.
I haven't got time for that.
I thought at first it sounded a bit like Oasis, but it's not.
Well, you're very close.
Yeah.
It's the band that Liam Gallagher went to...
is that the BDI thing?
BDI, yes.
BDI?
I mean, you can still hear his voice, can't you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it sounds just like Oasis, actually.
Do you think?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Well, that's because he's singing.
Yeah, exactly.
Woodenhead says Liam Gallagher is just jealous that Mike Parry's a better singer than he is.
Yeah, I think that could be true.
Which I think is a bit harsh. Johnny says the Oasis unplugged performance by Noel was absolutely amazing, and the music mixed with all the violins, etc., was so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. And don't get me wrong, please. I've never knocked the fact that I think Liam Gallagher is a top performer, is a brilliant singer, a great frontman. I'd say he's easily as good as Mick Jagger in terms of the iconic frontman.
But he hasn't lasted as long, has he?
Well, no, of course he hasn't. But he hasn't lived as long, has he? So,
and also Noel, as we said yesterday, has kind of, since they broke up, because they were always fighting and the rest of it, I mean, he's kind of made it very clear that he was the guy that was really behind it, and the saga of Liam's kind of solo career tells you basically that he hasn't been as successful.
No, exactly, and all that. But I mean, the only thing I object to a little bit is the terribly abusive language that he delivered to me. But I couldn't care less about.
Well, you can have the moral high ground in that
I've got
case
moral
because
high
you
ground.
didn't use bad language.
But I just don't want other people to read it. It's horrible, nasty, bitter and rather resentful stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, it's just a million followers of his that will have
Well,
seen
that's
it.
right, but it makes him look as though he's very sore about the fact that his career is now washed up.
I'm sure he is.
At a pretty early age.
I'm sure he is.
Now, it's a shame, really, because I'm sure he had a lot to offer.
Yeah, I'm able to tell you that the Glasgow to Turkey is 2,742 miles.
Well, I did pretty well, didn't I?
So you're basically 1,000 miles out.
I'm not. No, I'm not.
It was 3,915.
Well, that's nearly 4,000, you see. If I'd have said 4,000, I'd have said push on beyond Turkey to somewhere like Afghanistan.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're talking about 3,000 miles to New York, right? So I suppose if you go I don't know, a third of the way across America, that would be how far you'd have to go, and that's the length of the river.
Amazing.
That's incredible, isn't it?
That is utterly incredible.
And I took from what Peter said to you that you bought into the idea that Chairman Mao used to swim in that river, and I think that was all part of the little red book thing and the whole myth about what he did. Yes. And he never actually did it, by the sounds of it.
What do you mean?
Well, he said you bought into it, suggesting that it's not a true story.
No, he actually said Chairman Mao had a relationship with the Yangtze River.
Yeah, but he didn't swim in it, though.
Of course he swam in it.
He said you bought into it, which means that he's telling you that you've actually assumed the story to be correct, when in fact it's not.
No, I didn't take interpretation of it at all.
I think you got it wrong.
I think it was the amount of miles he claimed to have swum in it. He definitely swum in it. I've seen pictures of him in the Yangtze River,
probably
right?
wasn't him, though.
Yeah,
remember those pictures of Saddam Hussein swimming in the river, and there was like all these lookalikes all around him. Nobody actually knew if he was in there or if he was, which one he was.
Yeah, but it's easy to look like Saddam Hussein. You just need a floppy moustache.
There was a guy actually
It's
at
very
the
difficult
Express,
to look
wasn't
like Mao Zedong.
Really?
Chairman Mao. Yeah.
There was a guy at the Express who looked exactly like Saddam Hussein. Do you remember?
Which one was that?
You don't have to give his name away, but he was on the production side. He was on the back bench.
Oh, Dick.
That's right.
Was it Dick?
You don't have to give his name away, though.
I saw him in Joe Allen, the restaurant in
you?
Covent Garden, about 2 or 3 years ago. He'd retired and was saying what a brilliant thing the Daily Express pension policy was, because he'd done 30 years and he was now happily out for lunch every day on his pension.
And his pension's probably very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. I think this is very interesting, this thing about China and what they've said about, not using rumours and stuff like this, because I think this would have finished you off if you were having to aspire to this. It is forbidden to use hearsay to create news or use conjecture and imagination to distort the facts.
Exactly.
But that's what you do all the time in terms of me. You're almost distorting the facts and trying to make me out to be some kind of, alcoholic maniac and lunatic and getting into all sorts of trouble, which is, of course, untrue.
No, I act on evidence only.
No, really.
Listen, talking about evidence, right? Now, you and I, one of these days, it'll have to be next year now because it's happened again this year, I'm going to have to go to Henley Royal Regatta.
I don't think you'd like it.
It's
full of what you describe as top people who would look down on you. They would sneer at you
they wouldn't,
and realise that you were not one of them.
No, I'd feel pretty much at home.
No, you wouldn't, because it's full of public schoolboys and girls from Cheltenham School for Girls.
When I worked on the Chester Chronicle those years ago, young reporter, there was another paper in town called the Cheshire Observer. And
was that owned by somebody else?
Yeah, it was owned by a different newspaper group altogether. They've merged now, actually, funny enough, but it was strange to have 2 weekly papers in the same town. But anyway, the guy who was head of sport there was called Badger. I don't know what his real name
Badger?
was. I can't remember.
Why did they call him that?
He looked a bit like a badger, I suppose.
Was his face black and white?
No, he had a bit of like black and white in his hair or something like that.
That's very unimaginative, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I agree. But I mean, I inherited him as a colleague. I didn't choose the name Badger for him or anything. But he was a lot older than me. But he was the sports editor across the road, and the only sport he actually liked was rowing.
Right.
So every year he used
And
to take...
Cheshire's not particularly known for rowing, is it?
Well, the River Dee is in
Is it?
Chester, yeah. I mean, my school, the King's School Chester, was a big rowing school.
But you weren't in the rowing team, though,
I
were
wasn't in
you?
the rowing team, no. As you'll see from the pictures in the King's School annual magazine, which you've seen already.
Well, I've seen the pictures of you in the football team.
Yes,
I haven't
exactly.
seen pictures of rowing, though.
Oh, there was a rowing team
was there?
picture, yeah, in the same one.
okay.
Anyway, point of the story is, so every year Badger would say, I can't wait to get... He loved Henry Royal Regatta. So I used to say, what's so good about it? And he used to take his girlfriend with him.
Right.
And he had a funny girlfriend. She was about 25 years older than him.
Right.
It was really bizarre.
And he was already older than you.
He was already
So
older
how old
than me.
was she then?
About 50 in those days.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So he was one of the first toy boys ever.
I suppose so.
Probably.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. But and to be perfectly honest, they both had a face like a bag of spanners. You
That's
know what I
not
mean?
very nice.
They weren't.
That is not a nice thing to say.
The sort of couple who were probably with each other because nobody else would have.
And do you
been-
think they went away together and thought, if only we had the wit and the charm and the sort of joie de vivre of that very handsome man,
Yeah.
Mike Parry,
Well, maybe.
across the road?
Maybe. But anyway, the point is, he used to go, I said, and I said, and he used to go on about the striped blazer and the boater and all
Right.
this, And I said, well, don't you get... And he said, no. He said it's the unknown festival. He said, I go there, we stay in the same place every year. He said, it's sedate, there's a few people walking along the river all the time, there's a few little Pimm's tents to go in and out of and have a few drinks. But the reports I'm getting from Henley now is that, for instance,
Well, it
this
was
year...
probably quite civilised in those days because not that
probably
many
was,
could work.
yeah.
But now,
Yeah.
I mean, I went to it once with a friend of mine who does that kind of thing. He invited me, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think I saw one actual race.
No, of
And
course
most
not.
people don't actually bother watching the rowing.
No, they don't. For instance, the one that's just happened, 200,000 people
Right.
descend. Now, I've been to Henley-on-Thames because there's a great restaurant there called The Complete Angler. And I've
Yes.
been there with Al a few
And
times.
Henley's a lovely town, isn't it? You go over there,
Henley's
there's
lovely.
quite a nice is it a hotel pub type thing on over as you go over
Yeah,
the bridge.
that's right, absolutely, yeah, and I think I've stayed there. But anyway, the point is 200,000 people descend on this place, right, and it just turns into chaos. The police took, this year, because I think it finished at the weekend, took a mobile prison. And yeah, because so many of these...
They certainly need a drunk tank, I'm sure.
Yeah, so many of these posh toffs, right,
Yeah.
who get lagered up, end up, making, complete nuisance of themselves and all that.
Right.
And you've got to remember, a lot of these parties as well take place on boats, and people are always falling into the river.
Right.
It's a wonder nobody drowns.
Yeah,
and all
I mean,
that kind of stuff.
it is an incredibly sort of popular. Well, people now talk about it as part of the sort of summer society scenario. You
Yes.
go to Wimbledon and you go to Henley,
Yes.
and all of that. But as I say, I didn't find it particularly kind of. Shall we say, satisfying as far as I was concerned. We had a sort of what they call a tailgate party in the car park,
yeah.
and had some champagne.
Didn't you find it a great social event?
Not really, no,
No?
because most of them, it was full of people going, "Rah!" It's the Hooray Henry type.
Yes,
I
that's
don't
right,
really
yeah.
get along terribly well with it. My daughter went there a couple of years ago
Yes.
and said that it changes completely now because at night, instead of everybody leaving, they pop up with these nightclubs,
Right.
and suddenly, the place is going until about 2 a.m.
Right, okay.
And when I went, everybody was kind of leaving by 5, 6 o'clock.
Yes.
But now. They have versions of these kind of rather well-known nightclubs from the West End.
Yes.
And they charge you then like 25, 30 quid to get in.
Yes.
And because you're trapped there and you're already drunk,
Yes.
you pay it.
Yes,
You
that's
know.
right. Yeah,
So
sure.
it's become a much bigger sort of nighttime event now
Yeah, sure.
than it's ever been.
Sure.
But all I would say is don't ever get on a train back from Henley to London
No.
after the event because inevitably there's all sorts of horrible things
It's like
going on.
Cheltenham on Ladies' Day.
Yeah, even worse actually.
Yeah, or getting
But I
up.
don't think you'd like it though, because it is, as far as, even though you say these are top people,
Yes.
you're the top schools,
Yes.
they would shun you because you're not one of
No,
them.
they wouldn't shun me
They
at all.
would,
No,
yeah.
no, rubbish. I'm a public school boy, and that's the
No,
sort
you're
of people
not.
that go to
You're
Henley.
not. You went to a grammar school.
Yeah, I went to Direct Grand Grammar School, which is on the headmaster's register.
Yeah, but where do you think it is in the pecking order of, the Chelsea snobs?
Yeah,
Do you think it's above Eton,
and-
Harrow, Marlborough?
And if you're on the headmaster's register, you are officially a public school, and it's founded by Henry VIII, OK?
Well, they won't curry
Yeah.
mustard with these guys.
It does, yeah.
They'll go, yeah, so what?
No, it does. It
We
does,
went to
believe
Eton.
me. As your TV reviewer, I can reveal there are no plans for a new series.
Yeah, no, but it wasn't their previous series.
Oh, hang on, wait a minute. It says here there might be a new series. What's your problem?
We are the Two Mics, and that music can signal only one thing. It is, of course, a Porky Vision, where Mr. Parry tells us what he's been watching on television this week. I guess it's been a bit difficult with all the football that's been on as well.
Well, of course it has.
Not so much football this week, because it's down to the quarter-finals and semi-finals. But presumably you have to have some time, and also Wimbledon. I mean, I found myself having to watch Andy Murray and the football
there you go.
last night.
Exactly.
Amazing game, by the way. We should talk about that in a while. But what have you been watching this week then? Well, you can tell us.
Well,
about.
I think in a minute I'm going to concentrate on a catch-up on Coronation Street, because I haven't spoken about Coronation Street for a long time.
That's true, you haven't.
And there is an incredible amount of both bladderation and Rogerisation happening on a regular basis in Coronation Street. And as they are increasing the number of episodes a week from 5 at the moment to 6, that means there's going to be even more Rogerisation and bladderisation. And I do think it's a moral challenge to the country, because everybody sees Coronation Street really as a moral barometer of how lives should be led, with guys like Ken Barlow, with guys like Deirdre, who sadly is no longer with us, but her pseudo-comic life and the values and standards she had. Rita, who runs the cabin, she's got standards and values.
Lovely Rita.
But there's a generation of other characters in Coronation Street now who are into not just Rogerisation, bladderisation, but murder.
Right.
And, murder's not a good thing.
Den of iniquity, then, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'll get on to that in a minute. Now,
do you really think that Coronation Street is now as realistic as it used to be? Does it not kind of gone off the scale mad?
No. I think they've managed to keep up with the times pretty well. But the one or two things about it which I am not happy with, which I will tell you about in a minute, okay?
Yeah.
Now, the thing I want to talk to you about is Emmerdale.
Yeah.
Emmerdale.
Right.
I'm going to start watching it.
Why?
Well, because I think I quite like some of the trailers I've seen.
All right.
And also, it seems to have a cast of very attractive young ladies, okay?
Is that the real reason?
It's one of the reasons.
Right.
Now, you see, the thing is...
I take great pride in the fact I've never watched any of these things.
Well, you should. Now, you would think, wouldn't you? You'd say, well, hang on, if you're into them soaps and all that kind of stuff, why not... see, I keep saying that, them soaps.
Them soaps?
It's the way footballers speak.
Yeah, but why are you aping footballers?
Those soaps, right?
Or even these soaps.
Yeah, the soaps. Now, Hollyoaks is set in Chester, my hometown. So you'd think to yourself, well, in that case, shouldn't you be watching a bit of Hollyoaks?
I sometimes catch the end of Hollyoaks because I quite often watch the Channel 4 News.
Yeah.
And it's the last
I don't know why you watch Channel 4 News. It's done by Jon Snow.
I like the Channel 4 News.
He's an arch lefty. You're an arch righty. I just don't know why you watch it.
First of all, again, you completely and utterly misconstrue my political situation. I'm not either an arch righty or an arch lefty.
OK, I'll accept that.
I like to actually be...
an arch in the middle.
Well, I'm not in the middle either.
It's very loaded, Channel 4 News. It's very left-wing.
Well, it can be very left-wing, but it also happens to have some of the best foreign coverage of any news that you can get around the world, right?
You think?
And it happens to have some very good debates on it as well.
Anyway, listen, getting back to it. But I won't watch Hollyoaks, you see, because Hollyoaks is very young kids.
Yeah.
And I'd feel like an old lech if I was watching it, just to look at the glamorous young ladies in Hollyoaks,
in the last 3 minutes that I sometimes see, from time to time, I mean, they seem to have... I don't know. I mean, there's always some ridiculous storyline which is involving, like you say, either murder or some kind of, Rogerisation. But they're all in their kind of 20s, I would say.
But anyway, I want to talk to you about Spectre as well. I think it's the worst Bond film that's ever been made.
Well, that's not on television, though, technically.
Well, it is, because I'm telling you now, it was on Sky Cinema last Friday night, okay?
All right.
So it is on television.
Okay.
So it can come into the Porky Vision.
I thought you bought a DVD of it.
Well, I did, but the fact is it's on television anyway. It's now a television programme, okay?
Okay, all right.
So... what I was going to say is that, Coronation Street, right? Now, what's happening there is that...
Now, you're sure you're going to be up to date on this, because you're often accused of being a little bit behind.
No, I'm pretty up to date. There's a real sort of scrote of a young lady. I'd call her a scrote, because she's...
Scrote?
Yeah,
Isn't that a masculine insult?
Well, she's female. She's female scrote.
Well, you can't call a woman a scrote.
Well, her character...
You can.
No, it's not a real person, it's a character.
No, but you can't regard a woman as that, though.
No.
You can call a man that.
No.
You can say it on the radio.
No, she is the female equivalent, honestly.
Well, you know what it's short for, don't you?
No, I don't.
You don't know what scrote is short for?
Oh, it's not scrote something else, is it? Is it? No? OK. Well, in that case...
What did you think it was short for? And she doesn't have one, OK?
No, I see. I thought it was SCROAT, and it was a medieval expression.
Like stoat.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
well, maybe you could use the word stoat instead.
Medieval expression for a person of low sort of fibre.
Like something that sort of
anyway, what I'd
around.
say, she's a grubby little individual, right? And she used to knock around with the drug dealer, but the drug dealer's now been murdered. and buried under the concrete in Gail's bedroom.
Right.
But nobody knows that.
Why has she got a concrete bedroom?
Sorry?
Why has she got concrete in her bedroom?
Well, because they built they changed the garage in the house into a bedroom.
Oh, so it's the ground floor.
Yes, that's right. And while they were doing the foundations, they murdered Liam, who was the drug dealer, right?
Okay.
And they hid his body in the pit that had been dug for the foundations. But
Does
then
it smell a bit?
Well, no. The thing is, then the usual thing happened. The contractors turned up early the next day, funny, had got up and filled the pit with concrete.
Okay.
See what I mean?
Well, didn't they see the body in there?
Apparently not. Apparently it was dark or something. Yeah. Well, no, yeah. But anyway, so she starts pitching up in Coronation Street trying to find this guy.
Yeah.
And then Jason, who is as thick as my fridge door,
right.
He's Jason Grimshaw, the local builder.
Uh-huh.
He gets a grip of this young lady because he feels. Well, he's in the pub and he feels rejected by his former girlfriend, who's very attractive actually, Eve, right? Eve, yeah. And so he's and this girl's throwing herself at him, this woman of no virtue.
Yes.
And so he takes her home and indulges in rogerisation with
horizontal refreshment.
Horizontal refreshment until the following morning. Now, it's an interesting house, the Grimshaw house, because Mrs. Grimshaw lives there as well.
Right, so he took her back to this house with her other people.
Well, it's his family house, but his mother is Mrs. Grimshaw.
Uh-huh.
Her name's Eileen. Eileen Grimshaw.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to be rude about this because obviously there's a real woman in life who's an actress who plays Eileen Grimshaw.
Yes.
But Eileen Grimshaw is what I would regard as a very average-looking middle-aged woman.
Well, isn't that the point of the show? That it's supposed to be about ordinary people?
No.
You don't want everybody walking around looking like Angelina Jolie.
No. She seems to be overweight.
Uh-huh. Well, that's average.
Sorry?
That's average.
Yeah, but she's quite, and she's a big woman. She's overweight, and I don't think she's very pretty. And yet, men are often appearing in her life for mass rogerisation.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
Well, how old is she meant to be?
Well, I think she's meant to be about sort of 45 or something, you know.
Well, that's exactly.
But the last guy who she,
age, isn't it?
The last guy that she, she shacked up with on a permanent basis, he moved in. And by the way, they must have a massive house, the Grimshaws, because there's Mrs. Grimshaw with her fella.
Right.
There's Jason with his girl.
Yeah.
They've got a lodger who's a gay chap, and he's got a boyfriend who is a gay vicar.
Does he live there as well?
He lives there as well.
Right, okay.
And there seemed a lot of people living there.
Place.
Well, indeed, more than 3 bedrooms. There's 6 people already. And but anyway, Eileen Grimshaw, her last boyfriend was a fireman.
Right.
Now, firemen have the reputation for being, having a keen eye for the female form, if you see what I mean. But this fireman's either had his eyes affected by flames in burning building or something, or
because he was with Mrs. Grimshaw.
He's with Mrs. Grimshaw.
Okay. So he's a bit of a toy boy then.
Well, yeah, he was, but the problem was she got all upset about him being a fireman.
Okay.
And he said, why? And she said, well, you run into burning buildings.
Yeah.
He said, well, that's not all my job. I don't do that every day,
He rescues cats, presumably.
Yeah, but she went and complained to his commander-in-chief that, she didn't want him running into any more burning buildings. Yeah.
How bizarre.
Well, anyway, so he pushes off. She's now replaced him with the local villain, Pat Phelan.
Okay.
Pat Phelan, who chews chewing gum and looks nasty all the time. And he's like, nicking all Jason's tools from his business and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
All right.
And he's now supplying the horizontal refreshment to Eileen Grimshaw, okay?
Yeah.
But he is a villain. He's a nasty bit of stuff, And in fact, what he did was he blackmailed another lady in the street into rogerisation.
Oh, he sounds a very nasty piece of work.
Nasty bit of stuff. Yeah, Pat Phelan here.
Shocking.
Yeah, it's Pat Phelan,
So is he living in his house as well?
He's living in the house with Eileen now, but he used to be like a big builder and all that, And he blackmailed the wife or the partner of his... Sorry, he blackmailed...
It's very complicated, this.
He blackmailed the woman who was the partner of his business partner into rogerisation in a hotel in the Cheshire countryside because the business partner owed him lots of money on a deal that had gone wrong, and he said he'd rub off the debt if she'd subject herself to an afternoon of carnal knowledge.
Yeah, right. My ears are starting to hurt. I don't know if it's something to do with poor condition.
No.
If I'm having some kind of.
But the worst thing,
episode.
while all this is going on, there's lots
of time, by the way.
Don't worry about the time.
You've nearly finished this.
There's a lot of lady love sort of thing. Lesbians. Yes.
What, in Coronation Street?
In Coronation Street.
Not in the same house.
No, not in that house. But there's a triangle. There's a triangle because there's.
Is it a ménage à trois?
There's there's Sally's daughter.
Yeah.
And. She fancies a girl who already has a girlfriend who's in the army.
Uh-huh.
You're in the army now. Da, da, da. You know, that's the Status Quo song.
No, was it?
And there's a bit of a tussle going on there, so to speak. You see what I mean?
Right.
But I mean, it's happening all over the place and all the time. And the one thing that
sounds like a very confusing show.
No, it's not. No, it's quite simple.
A lot of people's names to remember
when you sit down and watch it. And in the middle of all this.
Alex here has tweeted, by the way, says Porky must have finally found a way to go back in time.
What?
That episode of Corrie is 5 weeks old.
What? No, I don't think it is. And in the middle of all this, old Dev is scouring the street looking for, female companionship, but with what are you laughing at?
Ashley
with
says,
a carnal eye on it all.
Jason pulled this scrotum about 2 months ago. Drug dealer's not called Liam, it's Callum.
Oh, Callum, that's right. Yeah, Callum, that's right, yeah. I knew it was an Iam, or an if you see what I mean.
And also this one from Def, it says, Jason doesn't have a girlfriend and the gay vicar doesn't reside there. Apart from that, spot on.
No,
Vision.
Jason doesn't have a girlfriend, but that's why he pulled the scrubber. I'll call her a scrubber, okay?
Yeah, all right.
And,
I'm not sure if that's any more acceptable.
And
I think we're all done for time.
Okay, yeah, well, there you go.
So is it worth watching or not?
That's Porky Vision this week. It's getting exciting.
Okay.
Exciting, yeah.
And here's one from Tony, who says, you forgot about Les Dennis sleeping with Eileen Grimshaw.
Oh, yeah, Les Dennis as well. He was another boyfriend of Eileen Grimshaw. So just in the space of a few weeks, she's had the fireman, Les Dennis, who she nicked off the woman across the road, Gail.
Right.
And now...
Pat feeling like, you know what I mean? It's Pat feeling here. Have you got a few bricks I can nick, eh? You know.
That was Porky Vision. There'll be the same time next week, of course.
Tell me, did you sail across the sun? Did you make it to the Milky Way to see the lights all fading and that heaven is overrated? Tell me, did you fall for a shooting star? One without a permanent scar, and then you missed me while you were looking for yourself out there.
A little bit later on in the show, it is Ask Porky time, so you may not want to ask him anything about Jupiter, because we don't know an awful lot about it, but we know a man who does, and it's Clayton Anderson, our favourite astronaut.
Sure is.
And he's with us right now. Clayton, very good morning to you.
Hey, good morning to you guys, Mike and Mike.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us
Indeed.
once more. Now, Clayton, this is quite exciting times, isn't it? The US Space Agency, NASA, has successfully put a probe into orbit around Jupiter. It took 5 years to get there. What are we going to find out?
Well, I think there's the possibility to find out a lot of different things, specifically information about their gravitational field, whether there's water in their cloud base that gives us any clue to the beginning of our planet and whether or not life exists elsewhere. There's a huge radiation environment there. And then the other thing that might be useful is the ability to see some of the moons of Jupiter as they go around in orbit. But to me, it's kind of a big jigsaw puzzle, right? All these different scientists looking at different planets and different parts of the planets, trying to figure out if they can piece it all together and ultimately assemble this jigsaw puzzle that gives them information and clues about our solar system and our universe.
Right.
Yeah, I, from what I've read, Clayton, the amount of gamma rays thrown out from Jupiter, the sort of X-ray type stuff, is so intense that nothing could survive in human form or any sort of animal life form, could it?
Right. I don't think that there's any belief that there's any type of life that's there. I think they're simply looking for clues as to how the planet Jupiter evolved and whether that gives us any information about our planet Earth.
Obviously, but can you just describe a bit more what Jupiter is? I.e., somebody told me it's just a huge mass of gas with a bit of rock in the middle. It emits all these gamma rays, which mean that you can't get very close to it because of the danger of that. But the other problem is that the air pressure is so intense that anything that gets within, I don't know, a couple hundred miles of it will just be crushed.
Well, yeah, the combination of the size of the planet, the gravitational force of the planet, the radiation of the planet, and its massive size make it a pretty formidable object. So when this probe is successful in its orbit for the period of time that it's going to be there, then they will send it down through the atmosphere, through the clouds, through the gas, in hopes of seeing if they can learn what is within and beneath gaseous cloud cover.
Yeah,
Because
I see.
And is that kind of...
We all assume...
I was going to say, sorry, Clayton, I was going to say, is that like a kind of a kamikaze mission? Because presumably the probe will go in, but it won't come out.
Right, and and as it goes in, it's only going to have a certain serviceable lifetime because, like you said, the pressure and all that stuff is just going to crush it like a bug. And they want to see if they can learn as much as they can as they dive into the atmosphere right before it goes away, and get that data sent back to them. So to me, it's almost amazing that they can even figure out how to protect the electronics from all this radiation such that they can even get the information back in the first place.
It's another barrier which we managed to crash through. But is it worth it, Clayton? Will what they sends back, will it have been worth the wait for 5 years to go? Because I know you've explained the reason for the mission is to try and find out how the Earth evolved and all that kind of stuff. But it is a hell of a long shot that we'll find out anything worth knowing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I try to get people to think of it this way. Don't think about the destination so much. Think about what was learned along the way. Mm-hmm. When you design that spaceship to withstand that radiation and withstand that pressure and force, technology moves forward. Technology gets better, and that technology can possibly help us here on Earth with our future situations and our future problems. So I like to tell people it's not where you're going so much as what you learn along the way.
Yes, I can accept that.
When we talk about the ecological...
Cure for cancer could be hidden there somewhere.
I don't know why you're obsessed with curing cancer.
No, it could be.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that you can only do one thing.
No.
Yes, people should be finding a cure for cancer, but they can do other stuff while they're trying to find a cure for cancer.
Yeah, but I'm saying that one of the one of the things we might find out is some miraculous way...
I very much doubt that we'll find that on the surface of Jupiter.
Well, you might do.
Really?
You might do. They found things in the Amazon forest that we didn't know were there, so why not?
Like what?
Why not, eh?
Like what?
Well, Clayton doesn't want to know about that. I'm saying that you find things in space that you don't even know are there because we haven't explored space. Until you explore space, you don't know what you're going to find.
Right. This is change your tune a bit. Clayton, you might remember when Porky said, what's the point of going out into space? There's nothing there. But let me ask you a question about the sort of the usefulness of everything. Because in the world in which we live, we always say, when people say, what's the point of a wasp? What do they do? Everything in our ecosystem has a point. Do you take the view, and does space take the view generally, or space scientists take the view that everything's there for a reason? So Jupiter, on the face of it, looks like a very inhospitable place. Doesn't look like anything could ever live there or grow there. So what's it for, I suppose, is my question.
Well, you're asking one of the philosophical questions of people's lifetimes, right? Why is stuff there? Why does it exist? What does it mean to us?
Yeah.
And I think that we have a lot to learn, right? If you think about humans, we're pretty small on the time scale of our universe and our solar system.
Yes.
So there's a lot out there that we don't know, and we're just now figuring out ways to get to places like Jupiter to actually begin to ask the questions and try to get some answers back.
Sure.
So it'll be long past you and Mike and me before we know whether all this was truly relevant to humankind,
And in terms of the way that the information that the Jupiter probe gets, is it going to be just transferred back as data? Are we going to see sort of pictures of anything?
I think we're going to see pictures, but again, it'll be like when the probe went to Pluto, right? The data has to be gathered, then it has to be sent back and kind of reassembled. But I believe we're going to get some pictures, and I'm hoping and guessing they're going to be just as spectacular as the ones that we saw at Pluto.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the latest mission. What else is in the planning, Clayton? Because this took 5 years to get there, right? Is there another probe somewhere flying to somewhere else that's going to, we're going to learn in 2 years' time has finally arrived? Because I think the drama of this one was that NASA suddenly got a call from the probe to say, I've arrived, didn't it?
Well, they shut things off, in order to preserve battery life and preserve the instruments on the probe. they turn things off to the maximum extent possible to still have it survive, such that the further away you get from, toward Jupiter, you're further away from the sun.
Yes.
Which means your solar arrays, don't generate nearly as much electricity anymore, so you want to conserve all that so that when it gets to where it's going, it can do what it's supposed to do. So
Sure. And is there another one up there somewhere heading to, I don't know, Mars or somewhere, or, I don't know, even further afield?
I think there are. I couldn't tell you specifically, but I also know that it's not just America anymore, right? There are other countries that are starting to send things out there to Mars and to the moon and various places. So, space travel and space science is becoming a global entity, not just the United States and Russia as it was for many, many years.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Given that we're in a position of perhaps leaving the European Union, this may be a stupid question, but is there any chance, and I know there is already some cooperation, but would it make more sense if the entire sort of space industry, whether it be Chinese, Russian, American, European, just actually formed themselves into one exploration team and just did it that way?
That may be coming. I can't read the tea leaves, but I'm a big Star Trek fan, right? And maybe we're headed toward the United Federation of Planets, and we're going to start here on Earth by pulling all the countries together.
Yeah. So, who's your favourite character?
Oh, I was a big Spock guy.
Spock.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. We need a bit of that.
I had the same amount of success with women.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Clayton, thank you very much, as ever, for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed,
as the information starts to come back, I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon. Fascinating stuff, isn't it, all this probing out into the void,
I mean,
as it were.
What I said to Clayton was, and of course none of us have enough knowledge to be able to answer it, but if we only learn about this because the probe actually phoned back to NASA to say, I've arrived, do you know what I mean?
The probe did?
Yeah.
Well, you sure automatically. It wasn't just automatically?
Yeah, automatically, that's what I'm saying, and I've just fired my retro rockets. What's your problem?
Has it got a name, this probe?
It does.
PJ.
Well, no, it's...
PJ here.
I tell you exactly what happened. What they do is they launch this probe and they forget about it for 5 years.
I know they forget about it. They're constantly monitoring it.
Yeah, I know, yeah. But then all of a sudden, it automatically contacts NASA HQ, which is probably down in Florida, right?
Well, it's either Cape Canaveral or Houston, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Houston, we have a problem. I've been to both of those places, you know.
Yeah, I've been to Houston. I've been to Cape Canaveral.
No, but I mean, I've been inside the NASA compound.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
I've been into Mission Control.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with that.
Well, have you been in Mission Control?
No. No.
You know the thing that surprised me about it?
What?
It's really small.
Is it really? Yeah.
Because when you see it on TV...
Yes.
What do you mean really great? See, this is typical of you.
Well, I'm trying to tell you... I'm trying to put this theory to you.
I'm giving you my inside knowledge of Mission Control.
Yeah, okay.
I was personally there, right?
Right.
When you see it on TV, it looks like a massive room.
Did you pull any, levers or press any buttons or anything?
No.
No?
No, I don't want to do that.
No.
I don't want to start sending rockets up.
No, exactly,
I'll tell you a couple of funny stories, but you're so disinterested in anything that you haven't done.
No. What size was this room, then?
I would say it was no bigger than this studio and that studio more or less put together.
Yeah, but when you see...
Which is incredible, because you think it's massive.
When you see it on TV, it looks like the sort of...
You think there's rows and rows and rows of people.
Yeah, it looks like the parliament of a country or something like that,
It's really not.
Well, that's very interesting. Thanks for telling us that. Now, what I'm saying is that there could be another probe heading for Venus, right?
Really?
And Venus was her name. She's got it.
I don't think that's the Venus they're going to.
No, but what I'm saying is, we only knew about this because it calls back today and says,
this is the
robot.
Probe called PJ.
Okay, guys, I fired my retros and I've arrived in the atmosphere around which planet was it? Jupiter. That's right. Yeah. So there could well be another one. What is your problem?
Because
why can't you
kind of characterisation of this probe?
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
What is he from the 70s?
No. He'll have been programmed.
Fired by retro probes, guys.
It will have been programmed. All I'm saying is there could be one now heading to God knows where. In fact, there is one, isn't there? That was just fired off the Earth.
God knows where.
Yeah, and just heading out. I mean, and just keeps going out.
I don't know. Somebody actually said to me earlier on Twitter, which was rather funny, 5 years for the probe takes about as long as it takes to get to Hastings on Southern trains.
Yeah, it's absolutely true.
Right. How about this?
Yeah.
This is a good one. Hang on, just let me find it here. What's Porky describing himself, says Nigel? A huge bit of gas with a gamma rock in the middle.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Jupiter plank. And then another one here from Gally, who says Porky is on another planet.
No, I'm not at all. But I do find this. See, I find it fascinating on the one hand, but on the other hand, what a complete waste of time.
No, it's not, though.
Sending a probe to a planet that you can't land on anyway, because A, you can't see it because it's surrounded by gas, so you don't know what's in the middle of it, and B, we already know that the air pressure surrounding it is so intense, it just crushes anything. It would crush, if the Empire State Building suddenly came into...
the orbit of Jupiter.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
it would
that
just
could happen.
It would crumble to dust and that sort of thing, No, I'm just telling you that's an example.
Yeah, it's a good example.
Yes, thank you.
A really good one to pick out of the air.
Yeah.
What about Clayton's view, though, which is totally anti-Porky, which is, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yeah.
About what you learn along the way.
Yeah, well, I've always said that in life.
No, you're only interested in end products.
No, the journey...
like if you're not winning, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah,
all
that's
that
right.
topless.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Because the
that
journey...
is a good mantra to have.
Well, what you're basically
People
saying...
stop me in the street and congratulate me on that, yeah.
Oh, well, like the editor of The New Day.
Well, no, the
He used to stop her in the street as well.
That's right,
And
yeah.
say, stop me and don't this on Facebook.
Right.
Who says, Porky, it is my 5th wedding anniversary next week and I've been married for 5 years. Well, you would have been. But I've been with her for 8 years in total.
Yeah.
So I'm fast running out of ideas. Have you got any thoughts on how I can make this one special and something different?
Well, I'd like to know a bit more about your circumstances. For instance, have you got a budget for this? If you've got a budget for this, then you obviously take your wife away. Where'd you take her? You take her somewhere really, really nice. Don't know which part of the country you live in. Is that indicated, Mike? Which part of the country we're from?
It doesn't say.
Right, well, always, the best bet is to go to the coast. I don't know what it is about the coast, but the coast really does instill a feeling of goodwill. Not goodwill, what's the word? Feel good about yourself. Well-being. Well-being is the word I'm looking for. Going to the coast instills a feeling of well-being because of the coastal wind, the smell of salt and brine, the sand between your toes if you're walking on a beach. Yeah. And generally speaking, it's a great event because it takes you out of the humdrum, rather grey and sort of black and misty, malingering of life, and lights it up a bit for you. Head for the coast. That's my answer.
Here's one from Darryl. I was in my local gym the other day and was amazed to see a gent drying his member with the hairdryer. Is this normal?
No, it's extremely unusual, and if you see anybody doing that again, I'd ring the police and report them. I think you'll find that if you...
It's perfectly normal to do that. I've seen people do that before.
It's outrageous.
How is it outrageous?
Because was this in a changing room or what? Well, I mean,
I presume it wasn't in the weight room.
Yeah, well, you don't know, do you? You don't know. People who go around.
No, it was completely clear. Some people get upset about this, but some people, when they come out of the shower in a communal changing room, like to walk around naked.
Yeah, okay.
And some people find that objectionable.
Yeah, but using a hairdryer on erogenous parts of your body.
Erogenous. Well, it's just drying it.
In my view, it's something you should turn away from and not witness because it's something that I would find wholly offensive.
Okay. Dan says this on Facebook. Porky, my next door neighbour's house is up for sale as he has died. There has been some shady characters looking round it, and my question is, should I use some underhand tactics to put off potential buyers, and have you ever done such a thing to avoid living next to undesirables?
Well, the worst thing in the world is bad neighbours, but I'm afraid you just can't stop bad neighbours these days. You've got to remember that one of the, tenets of being a property owner in the old days was that you could choose your own neighbours. If you moved into a nice street, you expected nice people to be there. That is no longer the case. Because of the massive boom in buy-to-let properties, and because we've become, almost a 50-50 rental and ownership property democracy, you have no choice over your neighbours. I wouldn't even bother trying to manipulate who your neighbours are going to be, because remember, if you stop one group of people coming who you think are going to be, unsuitable, another will soon turn up.
Okay, how about this one from Craig, who says, my brother won't come to the live show in Whitley Bay as it's his daughter's birthday. How can I make him see sense?
You could knock him over the head and drag him along, or you could fill him full of very strong booze, get him bladderated and tell him it's his duty. Or, the third thing, I'm not sure how old his daughter is. If his daughter was a teenager, she could come.
Just come along.
That would be acceptable, and bring his daughter, that must be your niece, with you. And if she's only little, then find a babysitter.
Okay. Missy B has sent one in, very simple. Can I get a job at Talk Sport?
Listen, we'd like to welcome all shades of talent to Talk Sport, because we like new ideas and new input and new thinking. But you'd have to go through the formal process because we are...
You're not in charge of that, are you?
No, I'm not in charge of it at all, because
They've taken that particular power away from you,
Indeed. Because we are, of course, an active media company. We have a recruitment process, and what I should do is get on our website. All the details will be there. Okay. Look forward to seeing you in a couple of years' time.
Stephen, couple of years?
Yeah.
Not
Well,
much
that's how long it might
encouragement
take.
there. Yeah, brilliant. Here's one from Stephen. You think you'll still be here in a couple of years? You never know. If you could have acted in any film, which part would you have liked to have played and why?
Reach for the Sky, Douglas Bader.
What?
Okay, I'd have been up
You
there.
would have saw one of your legs off.
I would have staggered around as though I had no legs, and been a real hero in a Spitfire plane. But
You'd like to have been a hero, wouldn't you?
to be honest, I'm not sure Douglas Bader was a particularly good guy. I mean, he did magnificent things with no legs, but I knew a bit about him towards the end of his life, charity events and that kind of thing. And
You didn't get on with him.
I didn't get on with him, and therefore I'm going to change my mind immediately and say Horatio Admiral Lord Nelson would be my favourite character to play.
In which movie?
We'd make one called Trafalgar.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think they did that, didn't they?
Yes.
One from Adam. Porky, having travelled to France to watch the Wales-Northern Ireland game, I had my wife's blessing. Then for the Belgian game, she built a doghouse in the garden, and God, she was angry.
Yeah.
Now I can't do the semi-final, but as the possible Wales final is on Sunday, what should my plan be to get the green light off the wife to travel back over there?
Well,
Sounds like he's in a bad place.
yeah, it does. I mean, this man is Welsh, presumably, is he?
Well, he's a Wales supporter.
He's
so
a
you
Welsh
would imagine
supporter,
so,
yeah. So, well, look, mate, I mean, at certain stages in your life, you just have to say no. If your wife says you're staying at home, you just say, no, I'm not. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I mean, look, you can't. How can I equate it to a once-in-a-lifetime experience for your wife? Let's say this. If you've got children and your son or your daughter were getting married, and you suddenly said to your wife, you're not going, she has to understand that's equivalent of her telling you can't go to the World Cup final if your team's there.
Right.
So you just say, no, I am going. If you want to be very broad-minded about it, invite your wife to go with you.
Yeah, because he's in Paris after all.
Yes.
Sean says this on Facebook. Porky, do you think it's wrong to worship the devil?
Yes, I do, actually.
Do you?
Because I think it's a cult of, it's just a very unpleasant, dark sort of cultish thing, which doesn't have any basis in fact anyway. So
I thought you said there was a devil.
No, it's in your own head. The devil's in your own head. The devil is evil thought, and you can expel evil thought by letting it be overtaken by positive and bright thought. But worshipping the devil is just it's just an excuse to be rather weird and odd and nasty.
Okay.
And so you don't want to pursue it.
TMF says this. After seeing Coldplay light up Glasgow this year, I fancy a festival, but it's a bit pricey. Would you recommend Swingfields?
Definitely not Swingfields, mate. You're talking about this place, aren't you, that we talked about the other night, where all these swingers
In
turned
Wales,
up
yeah.
and started sort of Rogerising in the open air in fields that they're renting off farmers and all that. Definitely not. Mucky pastime, mucky occupation, mucky practice. Don't get involved. Don't get involved at all. You don't need that. There are better things to do in the open air than to have physicality with somebody. It's very, very unpleasant.
Right. It happens at Glastonbury as well, you know.
Yeah, I
They
know.
just don't advertise it. Porky said, Mark says this. Porky, I'm spending a fortune on the lottery with not the best return.
Yeah.
Do I keep the same numbers or start doing lucky dips or just stop doing it altogether?
Well, this is a dilemma I found myself in. When the numbers were 1 to 49, I had 6 numbers.
Yeah.
And, of course, they ended at 49. Then the numbers were extended to, I think it's 59 now, isn't it?
I think so.
10
No,
more
no,
numbers.
don't do it.
And so the whole system is now skewed and wrecked. I used to get regular £10 when I got 3 numbers. I get it much, much more irregularly now. And I'm now on the point of stopping doing the lottery, except I fear that in 3 months' time, I'll wake up one morning and find my original 6 numbers, which ended at the number 49, have suddenly come up. So I'm frightened to stop doing it.
Right, OK. So you don't know what to tell him, really, do you?
Well, it's a matter of your own conscience.
OK. Tex has got a bit of philosophical question.
Yes.
Has there ever been a worse time to be English? Hashtag Brexit, hashtag Euro 2016.
Well, it wasn't very pleasant being English on the day that the Germans came and, bombed the East End for the first time. It wasn't a very pleasant day to be English on the day that the stock exchange collapsed in 1929 in America, and we were thrust into the worst depression in modern society. And it wasn't a very good day to be English, when the Vikings arrived and started raping and looting our inhabitants. Right. So, there have been many, many, many days when it's been worse to be English. It's not bad at the moment, but if Mr. Carney, the Governor of the Bank of England, keeps talking it down, we're in a crisis and all that, instead of talking it up, and the Financial Times, the so-called, paper of the pink paper, the paper of business, keeps criticising everything we do, then we're going to have a problem. I wish people would be positive and say, let's grasp the opportunities ahead.
OK, Barry says this. Porky, I'm struggling to decide what to put in my tart. Ripe apples or hard pears?
Well, certainly not hard pears and maybe not even ripe apples. If you're going to have a flan, my favourite flan, actually, with custard is peach. And you can get sliced peaches in a tin, or you can go and find yourself some real peaches. Either way, I recommend peach.
OK. Here's one, once again, on Facebook, and it is from, I think, where are we? From Madge. Porky, me and my wife have a joint bank account, which the bills are paid from. I like to spend a little of our disposable income and save the rest, whereas she likes to spend it all each month.
Yes.
I suggested separate bank accounts, and she went mental. What's the solution?
Well, it depends what the earning power is within your house and how it's distributed. If you earn a big salary and have enough money to look after your dependents, i.e. your wife and your children, then I should just give your wife a very generous weekly allowance and let her sort it out herself. If, on the other hand, you have two separate incomes, I don't see any problem at all with having two separate bank accounts, so you can both contribute to household expenses and then spend the rest as you wish.
OK. Now, this is a good one. Dave
Yes.
from Twitter says, which would be the bigger achievement, Leicester winning the Premier League or Wales winning the Euros?
Both be huge achievements, but I think Wales winning the Euros would be the bigger of the two, in the sense that it is so unexpected, and Wales come from such a small pool of potential footballers. Leicester, at least, had access to players of Premier League quality. Wales were very restricted in the amount of really good footballers they could call upon.
Simon says he's put a picture up, but I can't show it to you right at the moment. But it's an old toilet bowl which has been made into a plant pot, which some people do, use in their gardens, right? Is this a suitable present to my wife for returning to work after 2 years off?
No, it's a horrible present. I don't know why people put lavatories in their gardens and turn them into.
Well, because it's better than chucking it away, isn't it?
No, it's not chucking it away and turning it into some sort of a plant pot. I'm sorry, I find that rather a foul and obnoxious form of garden pottery.
I'll finish with Terry, who says, Dear Porky, have you seen the time?
Very funny indeed. Yes, I have, and there's plenty of time for more questions.
It's time to go. No, apparently there isn't. We have to go because we've got to do listography as well. That was Ask Porky. Please keep sending your questions in, and we'll be doing another one same time next week. Apologies to anyone who didn't get the question on the air, but, better luck next time.
Yes.
Right now, though, we have to do listography.
Indeed.
Which is, of course, our version of three things that people have suggested that we talk about.
Yes.
Tonight, it's jobs, rather like Jose Mourinho, although, to be honest, you have to say when Jose Mourinho left Chelsea the second time, they were in much worse shape than they were when he joined them.
Yeah, they were.
But our task tonight is three jobs that you had that you left in better shape than when you joined.
Right.
I'm sort of struggling to know if I can come up with three. Actually,
right, really?
But
think of three jobs you've had, and then
well, that's what I'm doing. I'm not struggling with the concept.
Okay.
Plank.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with the idea that after I've left,
yes,
they were always in worse shape because I'd gone. You see what I mean?
Yes. Okay.
But I would say for my first one, the Scottish Daily Mirror, which I edited for I guess about 3.5, 4 years, something like that.
Yeah.
There was definitely in better shape when I left it than when I joined it. However,
but then they closed it down, didn't they?
Well, they did because unfortunately, what they decided to do, because when I was sent up there by Piers Morgan, basically they were selling something like 20,000 copies,
right?
And they didn't have much investment. They didn't have much idea. They weren't changing many pages.
Okay.
I went up and completely revolutionised the political coverage and the sports coverage and everything else.
Yes.
And we actually got the circulation up to over 100,000.
Really?
Which, in terms of Scotland, was pretty good.
Very good indeed.
Some of it was done by virtue of cut pricing and all that. Yeah. But we kept when it all finally settled back down again.
Yes.
Once we'd taken all discounts off.
Yes.
We were selling 65,000 a day. Yep. Which was 3 times more plus. Than when I'd gone up there to begin with.
Yep.
And the idiots that ran the Mirror then decided that what they would do is completely take all of the Scottish stuff out of the paper, produce the English version only, and it would keep the same sales. And of course it didn't.
No, of course
it went back down to 20,000, then they shut it.
Unbelievable the way that some managers of media organisations haven't got a clue what they're doing.
Exactly. So that's my first one, and it may be my only one, so you have to give me some time to think of another two.
Okay. Well, my first one was I was employed when I was, a student to do a job which involved crop spraying.
Oh, yeah.
And what I had to do is I had to run the distance of the width of the helicopter with its arms,
Right.
which sprayed the
Was
crops.
it a helicopter? Was it not like a plane?
No, it was a helicopter.
Really? Wouldn't that blow it all away, though?
Well, it's a helicopter, and the helicopter used to go up, and it used to come down the field and spray it, and then it banked up into the air, turned round, came back down. I had to run the distance of the width of the helicopter
Right.
to the next point. Do you see
Right.
what I mean? And
do what?
well, to mark the field,
Oh, I see.
so that when it came back in for the second one,
Right.
it wasn't sprayed over
Wasn't
the
that
same
dangerous?
crops.
Well, you're not getting sprayed with dangerous insecticides.
In those days, people didn't realise that, but
No,
I
but
was.
I mean, that would explain a lot.
Well, it might do.
So you were
It might
standing
do.
there,
yeah,
in
getting
full
sprayed,
view, getting
yeah.
sprayed by dangerous chemicals.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
For
yeah.
how long did you do this job?
Oh, about 6 weeks, and then I
Well,
decided.
no wonder you're so weird.
Well, could be. And I used to go home each night. My mother used
you're
to
lucky
say,
one of your arms hasn't sort of shortened.
"Yeah, that's true." My mother used to say, you actually smelt like a chemical.
Yeah.
Sort
That
of
can't have been good for you.
fertiliser, waste type person. I had to go
Blimey.
and jump in the bath every night when I got home because we didn't even have a shower in those days.
Right.
And anyway, I gave them several pointers on how to improve things. And definitely, the job was better when I finished than it was when I started.
Okay. The only one I can think of next
Yeah.
is when I went to Bath University.
Right.
And they used to have a student newspaper there called Spike.
Spike.
Which was very, very badly put together, kind of
Yes.
A4 sort of few sheets kind of stapled together.
Right.
Once again, I became the editor and I decided to revolutionise it, right?
Right.
And so I turned it into a tabloid newspaper.
Yes.
In terms of an actual tabloid size.
Yes.
Took it to a new printers in Bristol.
It's very
managed
interesting.
to get more money out of the
Yes, Mm-hmm.
the student union for producing it, and made it, of course, into a much more, shall we say, in-your-face type publication.
Readable.
So instead of being
Yeah.
being a sort of a digest of what was going
Yes,
on and
yes.
reports from the football and all that, I turned it into a kind of a sort of a tabloid version of
Yes.
somewhere between the Sun and the Daily Mail, I suppose.
And this sort of stimulated your first journalistic instincts.
It did, yeah.
But at the same time, made it a better product.
But
you
it
would
made it
say.
a much better product, and so when
Yeah.
I left, they kept it like that.
Yes.
And I don't know what it's like now, but
Yeah.
it was definitely better when I left than when I got there.
Good, that's very interesting
All right.
indeed. And my second job that I made better would be the Newcastle Evening Chronicle. I went up there, right? That was my first job on an evening paper.
Uh-huh.
And I got up there, and in the first 6 months, we had about, I would say, 20 days off on strike.
Uh-huh.
They were always on strike.
Yeah.
It was either the printers or who were the guys in between in those days? The typesetters.
Oh, the NGA guys, yeah.
Yeah, it was either the printers, the typesetters,
typographers, yeah.
the van drivers.
Yeah.
Somebody was always on strike and used to come into work. It was appalling. He used to come into work and you'd be told, no, we're not working today, fellas. Why not? Oh, the NUJ are out in sympathy with the van drivers. Oh, the NUJ are out in sympathy with the typographical union.
Right.
The NUJ are out with the printers. And we'd sit around literally sit around in the newsroom all day playing cards.
Right.
And, people would come in and say, I've just heard that the circulation's dropped 5%. Well, an idiotic, way of life.
Yeah.
If your circulation
I know.
drops while you're on strike, it's still dropped when you go back to work,
Exactly.
you fool. It doesn't come back,
No.
and your paper closes down. And I went to see the editor, a guy called Jeff Bayliss.
Uh-huh.
And I said, Mr. Bayliss, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come here. My first job as an evening newspaper. I said, however, I've applied for and got a job on the Birmingham Evening Mail, and I'm leaving next week. I hope you'll let me go. I can't stand working here because nobody ever works anymore.
right.
And he said, Mike, I don't blame you at all. Actually, I'm going as well.
Right.
So that
Oh,
was
fair
much.
enough.
It was much better when I left.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Yes.
My only other one I can think of really is Night
Yes.
and Day magazine. I was hired as a sort of consultant just before they started to launch Night and Day magazine.
Now, this is not, of
This
course, our famous paper of a few weeks
no,
ago
not the
that
New
closed
Day.
down.
No, this was the old-
Let's make that. It sounds the same.
No, and this was Night and Day, and it was
Right.
the Mail on Sundays magazine,
Right.
which is now called Live, I think.
Yes.
And when I was brought in, it was being run by a lot of sort of very arty types who didn't really know
Yes.
one end of their production unit from the other.
Yes.
And I managed to discover that in all the money that they'd put into this magazine,
Yes.
and in all of the research that they had done,
Yes.
nobody had actually asked a question to the printers
Right.
of how it was going to be printed, because what they wanted to do, you know how there's there's 11 different TV regions.
Yes.
There's different colours when you're producing coloured
Of
newspaper
course, yes,
and
yes.
newsprint. And if they'd wanted to print the magazine the way they wanted to print it,
Yes.
it would have taken 7 days to print.
Okay.
Because they've had to make so many colour changes. And I
Okay.
went and discovered that this actually couldn't be done.
Right.
And so saved them not only a fortune, but saved them from an awful lot of embarrassment. And when I left,
Yes.
they realised that was why nobody else does full colour TV listings all the time.
Is that right?
Because it can't be done.
Yeah.
It takes too long.
Yeah, well, I suppose it does, yeah. Right.
Well, that's shut down now as well, though.
Right, the third job that I improved was, without a shadow of a doubt, let me see. It was when I was newspaper boy, because I developed the system of taking 2 sets of papers out at once, one on the back of my bike, one on the front of my bike.
Crushed your spine, you told me.
Well, it might have done, but I became super newspaper boy deliverer.
Yeah, okay, very good.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was...
What about your third?
That was my third, wasn't it? Night and Day, the student newspaper and the Scottish Mirror.
Oh, okay, fine.
I am sailing home again, across the sea.
Is this from that chart as well? Rod Stewart's greatest hits.
No,
No?
I don't think it was in it, was it?
Are you sure?
I don't think so.
Well, I presume that's why they're playing it.
I didn't see it in the list.
Oh, right, okay.
But I didn't go through
Maybe
every one
there's
on the list.
I didn't see Rod Stewart in there.
No.
I think it may be some reference to the Henley Regatta, even though they don't actually sail anything there.
Yeah, it is a reference to Henry Regatta.
We could have had the Eton boating song.
Jolly boating weather. Did I tell you, we used to... one of the jobs at the Chester Chronicle I was talking about, I used to cover the gang show, every Christmas. It was amazing. All these guys dressed as scouts up on the stage at the Chester Gateway
No, I think you told me the
Theatre.
story that you covered it, but you didn't actually watch it.
No, I didn't know.
And you got it completely wrong.
Yeah, I had a hot date that night, actually, with a girl who worked on the other paper.
May I draw your attention to this from the Chinese government? It is forbidden to use hearsay to create news or use conjecture and imagination to distort the facts.
Yes.
Which is what you did.
What?
When you covered the gang show.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah. Well, no, I got somebody to watch it for me.
Yeah, but you got it completely wrong. I remember you telling me the story, and then they complained, didn't they?
Well, there was a bit of a complaint,
Yeah.
But...
Not to worry.
But they used to sing, the finale was always, "We're rolling along on the crest of a wave." And they all used to do the old rowing action.
But even though you never
actually
actually saw it, though.
Sorry?
Even though you never actually saw it. Now, listen, we haven't got much time, but I'm going to tell you this from 2 people, Jez and Ian, who say the Complete Angler is in Marlow, not Henley.
Yeah, well, it's
You
nearby.
blank.
It's nearby.
So if you go to Henley, you won't find it.
It's on the way to Henley.
Yeah, all right then. William says this, went to Henley on Thames on a day out a few years ago, and an ice cream van nearby wanted £10 for a cornet.
Good God.
So I could do without that. I don't know whether he went to Henley just when the regatta wasn't on. Surely you wouldn't have to pay £10 for an ice cream out of a van, would you?
No.
That's ridiculous.
Well, I suppose that they're taking advantage of the popularity of people there. I mean,
the tourists.
Yeah, I like walking along the Solent. I see ice cream vans sometimes.
Yeah.
I go and buy myself a 99er.
Do you?
Yeah, and it
Do you
costs...
ever get 2 flakes? Or
No,
do you only get 1?
No, only the one.
Hmm.
And
Mr. Whippy.
I think that cost me like £2.40.
Yeah? Well, that's still quite a lot of money, isn't it, for an ice cream?
Might not be £2.40. It might be £1.80.
You don't know what it is, really, do you?
No,
Money
depends,
means nothing to you.
I think it depends on what size of.
I think it does, yeah.
Whippy cornet
well,
I have,
180, I would say, would be a small one.
Yeah.
And if you get
£2.40
a double, a bit more. How about this from
probably a
Robbie?
bigger one.
He says, MG, you think Porky wouldn't fit in at Henley Regatta with his half a lager and spam butties? You are correct.
Excuse me? Spam butties? What are you on about? I don't need spam butties.
Don't you?
Listen, in our political roundup today, we've
Yeah.
got to mention the fact that Mr Farage has quit.
Yes, indeed, he has.
Yes.
Well, you can see why, because
Yes.
he's basically saying, my work is done. Because, the British public have now voted to leave the European Union.
Yeah.
And if it's the UK Independence Party, you kind of have to say, well, is there any point in carrying on, don't you?
Yeah, but he's quit before, hasn't he? And then sort of come back and all
He
that
is a
sort of-
man
he's
who
been all over the place.
has done more flip-flopping, I would
Yeah.
say, even than you have in the time we've known him.
I didn't realise he's been an MEP for 17 years.
Oh, yeah, well,
17.
that's where he started, isn't it? I mean, he got himself into Europe.
Yeah.
And as they said to him last week when he made his sort of farewell
Yeah.
speech, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. You're out of Europe.
That's right. I mean, look, whatever you say about Mr Farage and what he's all about, I never liked the image of a pint of beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other. I just never liked it.
But he's a very, funnily enough, a very down-to-earth guy. I mean, he used to come in here quite a lot.
Yes.
And he's a very pleasant character. And
No,
he's been sort of vilified.
Yeah.
So he does come out with some silly things sometimes. But basically, I think he was never really quite suited to the world of politics because he's a bit too kind of straight-talking.
Yes, I suppose you're right, but I like our politicians to be a little bit sort of, remote and a bit elevated, because I think all this man of the people politics and all that leads to the Boris situation, where actually people don't take you seriously. Seriously, I mean, they just
but
don't,
I mean, the
you know what
idea
I mean?
that Boris Johnson, who has come from a
Yeah.
very privileged background, pretends to be the man of the people, is a nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but in the end, people just didn't take him seriously. They thought, a guy who bounces around like he does, how can he stand at the dispatch box in the House of Commons and, bolster Britain's position in the world by talking the country up or explaining a situation in a difficult period of our history or something like that? And I'm sure that's what people said.
I'm sure he would have had those conversations as well with his friends and maybe his family.
Yeah.
And they say, do you really want to be Prime Minister? Because if he did become Prime Minister, he'd have to behave in a way which is completely alien to him.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't sort of go bumbling around the world
No,
and
exactly.
do his kind of slapstick routine
That's
at
exactly
the White
what I mean.
House, could he?
That's what I mean. And one of the accusations against him was that, would he really take home all his red boxes and read all his files every night so he's on top of the
Probably
game?
not.
Whereas Theresa May, you get the impression she's very schoolmarmish about that sort of aspect of her job.
But people
you know
are
what I
being
mean?
critical of her, funnily enough, because, and I think maybe this is a little bit unfair, because she doesn't have children. They're saying, what does she know about family life? What does she know about the way
That's
it is?
not her fault.
Well, it may not be her fault, but
No.
I mean, people look at still women in politics who don't have a proper sort of children's and family and all that as being a bit out of touch.
Yeah, but no, what I'm saying is I read extensive interviews about Mrs May over the weekend. She's had diabetes for a lot of her adult life, and a lot of the complications of that led to the fact she wasn't able to have children.
Oh,
So,
sure. I'm not saying it's anything
she
other
says
than...
it's a big regret, and of course it is, but they have to live with it.
But,
yeah.
I mean, is it fair that she's then judged on that? I don't think it is it?
Yes. No, of course it's not. No, she shouldn't be judged on anything like that.
Now,
at
I've
all.
got this message from
Right,
Neil, who
okay.
says this. Please can you wish my lovely girlfriend a magnificent 25th birthday in Porky's best Martin O'Neill voice.
Right.
He says, thanks, gentlemen. A lot of people send these in,
Yes.
but they forget to mention the name of the person concerned.
Have we got a name?
So we don't have a name, so maybe you could do it as an anonymous.
What's the name of the chap?
His name is Neil.
Okay. I'm telling you, Neil, your girlfriend is magnificent. Magnificent. I'm telling you, you don't want to let that girl go. Happy birthday.
Whatever your name is. Thank
exactly,
you, Neil.
yes.
Now, what about this Chris Smalling story? Have you seen this in the
Well,
papers
this is a bit weird, isn't it? Chris Smalling goes to Bali on holiday after, the tournament, and I have to say he was one of our few successes.
You think he was a success?
Well, no, but he was one of our few non-failures, put it that way.
Yeah,
okay?
I suppose he was all right, wasn't he?
One of our few non-failures, and he's gone off to Bali, which is a hell of a long way away from France, by the way.
It is.
It's around the other side of America.
It's nearly as
to
far
South
away
Pacific.
as the length of the Yangtze River.
Yes, it's right. It's further away than the Yangtze River. It's about 10,000 miles away. And apparently suffered from food poisoning, according to reports.
But the first story said something else, didn't it? It was food poisoning latterly.
Yes.
Well, they said he certainly did faint, but it was unclear whether it was heat exhaustion or something else. They're now saying food poisoning.
No, exactly. And as a result of which he apparently fell over and cut his head and was pictured on a hospital bed, but happily signing a Manchester United shirt for some adoring health worker.
Yeah, well, he's got a bit of a sort of a cut forehead from the looks of the pictures. 3 lines on his head, it says in the Sun.
Yes, that's right.
Then 3 lines on an elephant. There's a picture of an elephant. But so it's one of those freak accidents, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Strange.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's strange, and we wish him well, of course. Now then, it's come to my attention that in Suffolk, which is, of course, I have a place there where I live, seeking a hedgehog.
How's the rib, by the way? The old dinghy?
It's good. It's good.
Is it in the water? Is it out of the water?
No, it's out the water at the moment.
Is it inflated?
Yes, inflated.
I mean, do you keep it inflated all year round?
Yeah, of course you do.
Do you?
Yeah, you don't deflate it.
Why
no.
not?
Well, you
don't
just
use it,
don't.
though. When was the last time you actually went out in it?
It gets used, don't worry. Gets used.
Gets used?
Yeah. Now, what I was going to tell you about, right, is that over there they're looking for a hedgehog expert, the first in Britain.
In Suffolk?
Yeah, protecting hedgehogs is now become a job. Charity is seeking someone to be the face of hedgehog conservation. Salary $24,000. It's at the Suffolk Wildlife Trust, and the hedgehog officer will be required to make Ipswich the most hedgehog-friendly town in Britain.
Why?
Well, because we've got to save the hedgehog. Now, do you see...
why in Ipswich, though?
Well, because it's in Suffolk and it's rural.
Well, I mean, it's not... Ipswich itself is not particularly rural, is it?
Well, around Ipswich is. I mean, if you've got the coast there, the Suffolk coast,
around London it's quite rural.
Oldborough is beautiful, beautiful up there, you know.
Have you seen hedgehogs up there in your visits to
I
your palatial pad?
I personally haven't, but
No.
I mean...
Have you ever actually seen a hedgehog ever? A real one?
I think I did when I was a kid. Certain I did when I was a kid in a garden or something like that, but I've never seen one since. Now, it says here, applicants for the job must have experience of ecological survey surveying, that is, as well as developing community-based conservation activities and engaging effectively with a wide range of people.
Right. Did you do that when you did your course at Trent Poly?
What?
Whatever that ecological surveying is.
No.
No? Well, you did some kind of surveying, didn't you?
No, ecological surveying means... It doesn't mean like you're doing a survey, like with a theodolite.
Oh, you don't
and
have
a
one
pole.
of those to do that?
No, you idiot.
Well, what's ecological surveying, then?
Ecological surveying means being aware of the landscape in which you're working.
Well, just looking around at it.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, okay.
Now, the Suffolk town, Ipswich, has become a hedgehog hotspot. Study has shown that hedgehogs are... No, it is.
Hedgehog hotspot.
It is, hedgehog
What's
hotspot.
that mean?
Study has shown that hedgehogs are highly adaptable and adjust well to city living. Findings presented at the Society for Experimental Biology...
That doesn't sound good.
At their
What's
annual
experimental
meeting...
biology?
Yeah, experimental biology.
That sounds like something out of Portland Down.
Yeah, it does actually, yeah. At their annual meeting in Brighton...
Uh-huh.
highlighted the importance of private garden areas in public parks, OK?
What, you mean, so there's a part of the public park which is dedicated to hedgehogs?
Yes, that's right.
Well, that's never going to work, is it?
And German researchers have fitted hedgehogs with temperature-sensitive transmitters to allow them to monitor hibernation patterns, winter nest site use, and the territory over which the animals roamed.
I see.
The hedgehogs tended to stay in
Who's
private
paying
gardens.
for all this, by the way?
Well, this is the Hedgehog Fund.
The Hedgehog Fund?
Yeah, during the day, venturing out into deserted local parks at night to forage and look for mates. We found that urban hedgehogs had much smaller nightly ranging areas than their rural counterparts. They ranged over only 12 acres versus 50 for the hedgehogs in the
Well, that's not
countryside.
entirely surprising, is it? I mean, why would you have to find out and discover what their hibernation habits are? I mean, surely in the winter they hibernate and in the spring they come back out.
Yeah, but you like to know how long they hibernate for.
Well,
now,
from winter to spring.
eh?
From winter to spring.
Yes, but how? That's too general. They want to make it more specific.
Yeah, but it probably changes on an annual basis because it depends on the weather, doesn't it? I mean, if the weather is colder, then they stay in hibernation for longer.
Well, this is what they like to find out. Now, all this has been discovered by Dr. Lisa Warnecki from the University of Hamburg.
Fine.
Yeah, and she says the trouble with towns is they're fragmented.
Do you not get the idea that there's far too many people sticking their noses into the hedgehog scenario?
No. Fragmented. Towns are fragmented by houses, roads, walls, fences, and over-tidy gardens. Bringing together your wildlife conservation skills and your experience of leading and developing community wildlife initiatives, you'll mobilise...
What a load of old rubbish.
Mobilise
It's
participants...
the most ridiculous story you've ever come up with.
Hang on. Mobilise participants in Ipswich to create a street-by-street network of hedgehog... sorry, get my words out here. Of hedgehog-accessible habitat to monitor their activity.
Really?
And it's funded by the Heritage Lottery Grant and the British Hedgehog Preservation Society.
Oh, great. Are you
And
giving money to them at the moment?
And no, not at the moment. And Dr. Warnecker from Dr. Lisa Warnecker from the University of Hamburg has been over to Ipswich.
Great.
And she said gardens and public parks are very important for city hedgehogs. They need gardens with natural
Why don't you
vegetation.
just do it in Hamburg?
Eh?
Why don't you just do it in Hamburg?
I don't think they've got any hedgehogs in Hamburg. And public parks less immaculately pruned with plenty of natural bushy areas, OK?
There's nothing wrong with that.
It says the main problems urgent...
You've seen the time, by the way.
Hang on. The main problems urban hedgehogs face are injuries caused by fences, plant netting, gardening tools, sickness from swallowing, rat poison. Right?
OK.
They've got
Finished.
until July the 13th to apply for the job. I could go back and live in my place in Ipswich and apply for that job.
Be the hedgehog captain
Yeah,
of Ipswich.
yeah.
Why don't you do that?
Yeah.
Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.